All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Beard and the Bookie. As always, there is the Beard, Josh Hiltner. I am the Bookie, Dan Siegel. And today we have the host, I guess. Matthew Light is joining us. We are breaking Matthew's broadcast cherry, I guess we'll call it, giving him the test run. So Matt will be here steering the ship while we basically, I guess, talk the shit. I mean, that's the way I'm going to put it. So, how we doing, boys?
Good. How you doing?
All right. How we doing over there, Beardy?
Man, I'm always good. Let's get this shit going.
All right. Well, Matt, you're the host of this thing, so take it over.
All right. So what we're going to start with is check out these NFL games from this past weekend. We're going to start with last night with the Ravens and Raiders game. What do you guys think about that crazy overtime, whatever the hell that was? And how did the Ravens go from completely dominating them in the beginning to losing in overtime?
Well, as you and I were discussing before the show, the Ravens have a major issue, and it's not the fact that they're about on their 15th running back or that the defense isn't the defense of the old days that had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and those guys. Okay, they got a new offensive coordinator, and all off season we've heard that this passing game was going to be so much different. We were going to see Lamar take more shots down the field and blah 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 blah. And then what we saw last night was they've taken the ultimate part of Lamar that makes the Ravens away, and that is Lamar running the football. You could count on one hand and not use all your fingers the amount of significant runs Lamar Jackson had last night. Okay, if that's how the Ravens are going to start playing football games, the Ravens have a huge problem, and you don't have to consider them contenders for anything ever again. Lamar Jackson is not a pocket passer. He's not even a passer. Okay, did you watch that game? Anytime that they tried to rely on Lamar's arm to move them down the field, it was a drive that went nowhere. You asked, how did they have a 14-0 lead and the Raiders got back in the game? That's why. Because they tried to run the football, not with Lamar, with running backs, that didn't work. And then they asked Lamar to pass the ball, which doesn't work. Okay? Lamar Jackson's best attribute to throwing the football is by running the football. When that game got tight and the Ravens took the lead again, it was because of Lamar's run. They almost won the game because of Lamar's run. If the Ravens want to win football games, Lamar needs to run. That's what Lamar does. Okay? This is RG3 reincarnated, except better, because RG3 was never really that good. He had a flash and he was done. At least Lamar has, shown that he can get to the playoffs and then suck.
It's true. What you got, Josh?
I mean, that's kind of harsh, but I agree. I feel like the biggest thing with that is, Lamar, and we talked about this. We knew that the Ravens were going to have an issue, but I think that part of it, other than Lamar having to throw passes, was the fact that the Ravens clearly have a durability in some kind of strength and conditioning issues. Not just trying to play up the injury factor with how many people they have with torn ACLs and everything. You're actually looking at, as a team, I just don't think that they are kind of built for those knockdown, drag-out kind of games. They let their foot off the gas a little early when they had that 14-0 lead on the Raiders. Raiders were able to claw back. You saw that the Ravens weren't able to kind of carry that momentum. A couple great points there with the way that Lamar was and Lamar's big run. It looked like a less refined version of what Russell Wilson does in Seattle. Like, that escapability is what makes Lamar dangerous. That's what makes him as good as he is. If the Raiders can take that away and force him to throw the ball, that's when you're going to start seeing these kinds of errors. But honestly, it's the defense's fault. That defense never should have let Oakland back in that game. We saw Ruggs kind of have a breakout game, kind of a breakout night. He's starting to look like he did when he played at Alabama. Josh Jacobs had a good game. So surprisingly, John Gruden has kind of built an offense now that's able to claw back into those games against a little bit weaker defenses. So that's really what it came down to, was tenacity, strength and conditioning, and overall game plan.
You bring up Henry Ruggs, and I wanted to point this out too. Does Derek Carr know he has other receivers besides Darren Waller? Darren Waller had 19 targets last night. 19. Ruggs had 3 or 4. Renfro had 5. Like, the first half, it was Darren Waller, and the only other guy that got targets was Jacobs had 1, and then the other running back or fullback had a couple. Like, Derek, when you're throwing to Waller every freaking time, defenses suddenly realize, wait a minute, we don't have to cover anybody. That's not going to work out real well come 4 weeks down the line when he keeps throwing to Waller. All of a sudden, you'll look up and Derek Carr has 4 picks in a game.
Which would be very like him.
It would. Absolutely. You're also forgetting the fact that Darren Waller, up until this point, has been the best player on that team. Hunter Renfro overall as wide receiver is the most well-rounded. Ruggs is the speed threat. Go ahead.
I'm not debating who the number 1 target on that team is. It's absolutely Darren Waller. But if you're going to maximize Waller, you got to spread the wealth a little bit. You can't just focus on him 900 times. By the way, the scout is in the chat trying to tell us that RG3 was good.
For like a game, yeah. He beat the Vikings in the playoffs, so.
All right. So speaking of tanking or being good, let's talk about that Saints-Packers game. So do you guys think that Aaron Rodgers is tanking on purpose, or do you think that Jameis Winston is just that good?
I don't think it's either one.
Which is
laughable. It is laughable. But the Saints have beat the Packers, I think, 9 straight in regular season play now. Maybe even including playoff play. So I'm not really surprised. I think Sean Payton just really has their number. I think he's kind of built to beat that team. Rodgers didn't look great. I feel like there is some kind of locker room issue. Jameis looked good. I guess that LASIK is allowing him to see his own receivers instead of the other team's receivers or defenders. So there's a bunch of things.
Today, I literally made that same joke today.
Yeah. Like
he's like
squinting.
Squinting Winston, man.
Yeah. So there's definite improvements on his game. I think the Packers just I don't know, man. I'm happy whenever the Packers lose. Like no one will tell you that more than me. I'm so happy every time they lose. But it was a bit of a shock to me. And Dan was pretty confident that they were going to win that game based on like Peyton trying to find a good neutral site that would keep Packers fans away from it. But you have to credit Sean Payton's just overall ability to beat that team and some ongoing locker room issues within the Packers. I don't think Aaron ever intentionally loses a game, but I think that he may have not given it his all after he kind of threw those picks early and just got off to a rocky start. I think that he kind of was like, well, this game's pretty much over at this point. Let's save the real game plan and playbook for next week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hit the panic button on the Packers yet. Yeah, I thought the Packers would win last week. I think I and other people overlook the fact that in the midst of all the turmoil that Green Bay had this offseason about whether or not Rodgers would come back, whether or not he would play, whether or not he would be traded and this and that, and blah, 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 blah. Rodgers wasn't necessarily, on high school fields throwing. He was on vacations and doing Jeopardy and doing everything non-football related that he possibly could. And I think that might have had a huge effect in all of a sudden getting his first game action since last year. That being said, they have the Lions this week. And, final score be damned. Okay, the Lions were not close to the Niners. And I fully expect Aaron Rodgers, mind you, on a Monday night being the solo national game against a division, quote unquote rival in the Lions, for Rodgers to whip out his discount double check belt and whatever else he's got and just rip them apart. Rodgers will use ESPN as his line of showing everybody it's fine, relax.
Nailed it. So, touching on the 49ers, who you just touched on, I had a question for you guys. Is the NFC West the best division in football? And is the AFC in trouble? Because there's nobody to me that's standing out in the AFC.
Well, while Josh ponders, when we did our futures look, we had said that the NFC West could be the hardest division in football. You know, you had the Rams and Niners up top. You know, we have questions about the Seahawks, and we had questions about the Cardinals, which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly. But I mean, as of right now, there's only two divisions that went 4-0 this week, which was the NFC West and the AFC West. That's it. So, and, you know, needless to say, it's only week 1, Josh, but we gave out lots of picks last week, you know, especially futures-wise. Some of those are looking good, okay? Jameis to win comeback player of the year looks pretty good after week 1. Herbert, you know, despite the Fitzmagic injury, going into Washington and getting a W, keeps the MVP hopes alive despite the Mahomes win. You know, I don't think anything from, you know, it's only 1 week, so we're not trying to hit overreaction buttons heavily here, but I don't think there's anything that completely surprised me. There are things that did surprise me, but again, I'm not hitting panic buttons on anything. You know, we need to get 3-4 weeks in before I can declare somebody legally dead. NFL.
I don't need that long. I can tell you there's at least one team that's clinically dead for me, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. The NFC West for sure is the powerhouse right now. I mean, they looked so good, all 4 of those teams, which was kind of a shock. But interesting that Dan left out Matthew Stafford's MVP chances because his line just crushed this week. He is so much closer to being MVP now based on the way that he played against the Bears, which I told you was going to happen. I told you this guy was going to have a career year, and he's definitely looking like he's going to have it after week 1.
The Rams.
The Rams and Sean McVay are going to revitalize his career. However long he has left, he's going to make the most of it there. I don't think the AFC has to worry, though, because the Chiefs still look like the Chiefs. And the one thing that they did that really impressed me was they fought back. They showed that, like, they can stay in games. They're not just going to rely on Tyreek, even though, like, the big play was to Tyreek Hill. But you're seeing that tenacity. You're seeing that fight in them. So I don't think that they necessarily have to worry. The Chiefs has gone back and forth with the Rams before. The 49ers have lost a Super Bowl. You know, the Cardinals are young and developing, but I don't think that they have the longevity to play in a Super Bowl. And the Seahawks are not the Legion of Boom Seahawks. They'll win some games. They'll be okay, but they're not going to be world beaters. So if I'm the AFC, if I'm the Bills, I mean, the Bills had a rocky week 1. But again, no overreaction, no panic button. That could be very beneficial for them going forward. But the Bills and the Chiefs, I don't think are really worried at this point. Give it a couple weeks. Let's see how everything kind of pans out, shakes out early. And we might be saying, yeah, if the AFC's got to be concerned about the NFC this year. But for now, no. I think everything's just trying to figure itself out right now. We're seeing flashes yet, but nothing serious.
Cool. What do you guys look
I
forward to?
rebuttal the 2 things you said there.
Go ahead.
Number 1, the Chiefs fighting back. Yeah, they fought back, but guess what? The Browns, remember, they were the Browns. Okay? Punt a damn football. I mean, the Browns, in their typical fashion, collapse. Okay? Yes, we know Mahomes can be quick strike, which he was to Tyreek. Okay? But the Browns still had that game in their hands and then were the Browns. Okay? So all the credit in the world to the Chiefs, but exactly what we said last week when we talked about the line. I said, I thought about the Browns and I kind of liked the Browns, but I don't trust the Browns. And that's why. All right. And as far as the game a little closer, Stafford has 2 big passing plays, which puts 14 points on the board. Okay, fine. But look at the rest of that game. Okay, the Rams defense, all right, it's the Bears, mind you, which is why points weren't put up. But Dalton moved the defense he shouldn't have moved the ball against. And take away the big passes that Stafford had, and it was kind of like the Bears were pretty much in that game. If you take a couple of big plays away, like it was a win. It was a double-digit win, everything that we expected. But as far as like the impressive meter, I wasn't overly impressed by any means.
I don't think you were impressed by anything this weekend, if you ask me. I mean, the fact that Andy Dalton, kept them in that game and they didn't just put Fields out there full time is impressive in its own right, okay? And it's week one. But if Stafford looks good and makes those plays week one, he's definitely on the upswing this year and he's going to have a great year. So, I mean, you can hate all you want. That's fine. You're wrong, though.
I'm not hating.
That's pretty much all
I'm just saying. You're making it seem like it's the air raid over there. I'm like, calm down. It was the Bears.
Do you think that the guys not playing in the preseason had any effect on what was going on during the games, during some of these surprises, some of the stuff that like kind of some lackluster performances and things that were happening like that? Because me personally, by what I saw, a lot of the guys that didn't play in the preseason didn't play very well in the first week.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say for sure a couple teams, and I think it's more we're in that learning period now that we only have like 3 preseason games, except for whoever's going to be in the Hall of Fame game, they get 4. But a lot of teams were sticking kind of with that traditional standard of most of our starters aren't even going to play. They'll practice, but they're not going to play any in games. They're not going to get any real time in. And we're going to play the guys that we need to know if we need to keep or not. Specifically with teams like, I'll give you Minnesota, prime example of this. Minnesota's offense did not really play at all. I think they had a total of like four offensive drives where it was the entire first team minus Dalvin Cook. You can see the offensive line was struggling. I mean, we had 17 offensive penalties in that game, but you weren't getting guys that were putting anything together really. But in the same sense, Jamar Chase really struggled in the preseason. Guy comes out and says he doesn't know how to see the football, and then comes out and gets over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown in week one. So I guess it's really just a matter of some people shine when it actually matters and some don't. But, I mean, you look at teams like Denver. Denver has the ability to be a really good team. They have a lot of weapons on both sides of the ball to play really well. They didn't do anything amazing, and they didn't beat the brakes off the Giants. They beat them, and they beat them easily, but it wasn't anything flashy. So we weren't seeing a lot out of a lot of these guys. The Bills started off slow too. So Josh Allen and Diggs didn't really come alive like they were supposed to. Obviously, Green Bay didn't do very well. So I think it's just that learning curve. But yeah, I think we should find a way to get the first teamers in there a little bit more. Rest of running backs, I don't really have an issue with, but quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive line, tight ends, they need more playing time for some teams because whatever they're doing currently just isn't working.
Agreed.
I'm not going to get on the whole, they didn't play in the preseason. That's why they look like garbage in week one. I mean, Burrow played 4 snaps in the preseason, and he looked fine in week one. It depends on the guys. I mean, that's all there is. I mean, Brady asked to play in the preseason. He doesn't have to. I mean, you have guys that have been in the league for years who don't play in the preseason, come out, look fine in week one. And you have guys that, that don't. I think the biggest thing is the amount of practice time that guys are getting. I mean, the Giants are a prime example of a group that hasn't been together at all this preseason. Barkley didn't play, barely practiced. Galladay had been hurt. Ingram was out. Kyle Rudolph was the starting tight end. That was wonderful. Their first round pick, Kadarius Toney, who as soon as he was drafted, I called him a bust. He's barely part of the game plan. I mean, this is a team that is borderline dysfunctional already. That offense is completely dysfunctional. And when it's headed by Jason Garrett, well, that's all you really need to know.
That is it. All right. What do you guys got looking forward to next week? What are you looking forward to seeing or hearing or whatever?
Go ahead, Josh. Take it away.
You know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for my first lock of the week when it comes to betting. And that's Arizona minus 4.5 against Minnesota. They're going to win that game by 21 points at this rate. That is an absolute garbage game. We're going to get absolutely destroyed, and I'm really not happy about it. I tell you this, though, there's still a couple teams that I am actually excited to see. I think Detroit is actually going to do better in that game against Green Bay than you think they are. I was surprised at how well they actually played in that game. I mean, yes, the scoreline, garbage time points and whatnot, it is the 49ers, though. You're putting up better numbers than I expected from a Jared Goff run Detroit Lions team with no offensive weapons other than Swift. Okay, so I'm actually looking forward to that. Overall, though, it's week 2. I'm excited just in general. There's not any one game that's going to stick out to me. I'm not even probably going to watch my own game this week because I'm just sad and I don't want to be more sad. Denver's my team that I'm pretty much riding this year. I feel like they're going to be the shock and awe surprise coming out of the AFC. I think they're going to be a wild card team. And so that game is really where my focus is. I think they right now are minus 6. I think they have a 6-point advantage to them. And if that is still there after this, I'm taking that 100% because that's really the game that I'm watching. And then there was one more. Sorry, I have to pull this because I can't remember. My brain is shot today. What else did I say? Titans 5.5.
Who are you talking about being 6? Denver?
Yeah, Denver's minus 6, I think.
8.5 is what I'm looking at.
8.5 now? Okay. So I'll still take that.
Okay, unless I'm looking at the wrong game. Hold on. No, you're right. 6. I looked at the wrong game.
Okay, cool. So yeah, minus 6. I like Denver, and then Titans plus 5.5. That was my big shock last week. I did not see the Titans really playing that horribly, and Taylor Lewan came out and said, hey, I got exposed by Chandler Jones, and I appreciate that. It's going to make me better. Good for you for noticing that you got absolutely crushed in your first game back coming off injury, but Tennessee's going to step it up now. We're going to see a lot of these teams that had these slow starts really come back. Tennessee plus 5.5 is a game that I really like. I would take that to the bank too. Denver against Jacksonville, yep, I just double-checked, is minus 6. So both your side and my side both have that the same. And Seattle's defense isn't as good as Arizona's. So those are that I'm really going to be watching. I'm excited to see Derrick Henry and Julio maybe actually get some plays, get some yards, get some touchdowns. Would be super nice for me and my fantasy points this week also.
Is Julio's ego okay? I know Vrabel took him to the tool shed for being an idiot.
I mean, he's been around long enough and been on teams that suck way more than this. So I think he'll be fine.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say about your Arizona pick. It's not that I don't like it, because ultimately I agree I would probably take the Arizona side. But you're taking a combination of your pure displeasure with your Vikings and the complete overreaction of how the Cardinals looked and combining those two things into this 21-point drumming. Okay? 2 things here. The Cardinals aren't that good, and the Vikings aren't that bad. Okay? I expect to see more Dal Cook. Okay, that was the biggest thing I took away from that Titans game. Derrick Henry was on a milk carton Like, homie, you run the football. You're supposed to just plow people. Run the football, not hit a body over. Dude, did you not eat the Wheaties in the morning, homie? So that was the big shock. But I expect Dal Cook to be able to run the football. You know, your boy Kirk Cousins might be able to throw the football a little bit. Chandler Jones isn't going to get 5 sacks again. You know, Kyler Murray will be Kyler Murray. I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins isn't DeAndre Hopkins, the Titans might have actually gotten back in that game. I mean, that, you know, there's nothing you can do about that guy. I mean, that's plain and simple. I mean, as far as arguments about top wide receiver in the league right now, Hopkins goes out on a weekly basis and shows you why there isn't an argument. He makes Kyler Murray look very good at times when Kyler Murray isn't very good. Okay. And the other thing is when Kyler Murray can take 3 steps back, throw off his back foot, and just throw the ball straight up in the air and just lands into a receiver's arms wide open, that's not Kyler Murray. That's the defense. Okay. I need to make that known. Okay. So stop with the, oh my God, look at the Cardinals. And stop with the overreactions. Let them play a real team first. The Titans look like garbage in week 1. All right. So just calm down there. So here are all right, we'll get to the lock of the week later. By the way, the lock of the week, week 1, cashes. Okay, the extended parlay, not so much, but the lock cashed. All right, yeah, Josh, I know you're upset about the extended. The lock cashed, though. But here are the couple of plays I'm looking at. First off, the Bears are giving 2.5 to the Bengals. I'll take Bengals on the money line. You telling me that Burrow can't move the ball against the Bears?
He'll be fine.
Like, again, saw what the Rams did. I'm not saying the Bengals are the Rams, but – and I know the Bengals are the Bengals. I mean, they were like a very small step above the Browns as far as trust factor. But, you know, Burrow looked really good. Mixon wasn't hurt after week 1, so that's a bonus. Jamar Chase caught some footballs. So I like the Bengals to just beat the Bears. I don't need the 2.5 they're getting. What were a couple of the other ones I saw? Oh, I'm on a lot of dogs this week, apparently. I'll take the Cowboys getting 3 against the Chargers. You know, I expressed my love for Justin Herbert last week when I gave him out as MVP. But you cannot look past what they did against the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs kind of handed them the game with 4 turnovers and a defense that didn't look overly great. But regardless, I mean, despite the fact that Zeke, still looks like he can't run a football, they moved the ball and they put up points. And the Chargers, even when they win games, they don't win them easy. Okay, despite the fact that Anthony Lynn is gone, they still couldn't win that game against the team easy. So 3 points, I think, is a pretty safe number. If I could get a hook, I'd really appreciate a hook. But I'll take that. And the other one I'm looking at is coming off of that game last night on a short week. They're laying 3.5 to the Ravens Sunday night. I'll lay the 3.5. The Ravens defense didn't look particularly good. The Chiefs, the Chiefs have beaten the Ravens. I think the last 3 times they've played, they've put up at least 31 points in all 3 games. And if the Ravens are still going to stick to this whole, hey, let Lamar throw the football, I feel really good laying 3.5. So those are the 3 that jumped out to me early on in the week.
Right. And I hope that my team without a name can pull off a game on Thursday against a team they haven't beaten 2 years. So,
hey, Maddie, I'm curious.
It's funny you bring that up.
No, Dan, you wait your turn.
Go ahead,
you've said enough in the last 5 minutes. Jesus. Maddie, I'm curious.
Go ahead.
I know. I'm done with the Minnesota nice bit. Okay. So, Maddie, question for you. As a fan of the Washington football team, I have 2 questions for you. One, is there a team in your division other than yourselves that you feel like could actually contend for the title, for the division title? And 2, I mean, out of all the prospects that you've heard potentially moving forward for your team's new name, what's your favorite?
God, I don't have a favorite. I mean, Red Wolves is okay, but it's really hard to get over like what they were for 98% of my life. As far as who's going to compete in our division, nobody's going to compete in our division. We're going to be no matter who gets in, it's going to be a one and done like always. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it, the only other team in my division right now that I think has a chance to beat us for it is Dallas, which makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. Like really makes me want to throw up. But yeah, probably just Dallas. Dak looked really good in his first week. Their defense is trash, so I don't think that they can. I mean, if we put a good offense together and Heineke actually does his thing, I don't know what to expect from him. Like I was expecting Fitzpatrick all year, who's going to throw 7 touchdowns one game and 24 interceptions the next game. So it's really up in the air for me right now. If we stay healthy, if our defense stays healthy, we'll compete. But I mean, a one and done in the playoffs at least. So in the playoffs at least.
Matt, what I was going to say, and considering you're a fan of the team, you can speak on this a little better than I can, is I think they might be in a better position with Heineke than they were with Fitzpatrick. We saw Heineke at the end of last year. He played in that playoff game against the Bucs. He kept them in that game the whole way in. And the biggest thing he can do that Fitz can't, and I won't say can't, it's just, Fitz being the older statesman that he is, he won't move as quickly, is Heineke is mobile. We've seen Heineke take off and get yards and all that. He doesn't have, obviously he doesn't have the experience of Fitz, and maybe now that there's a little tape on him, defenses might be able to adapt a little better. That remains to be seen, but I feel like the ceiling for their offense might be higher with Heineke than it was with Fitzpatrick. Ultimately, they are going to live and die by their defense. Okay, they don't want to get in these 30-point shootouts. They want low 20s, high teens type games. But I feel like the ceiling for the offense is higher with Heineke.
I agree with you. I've been a proponent for him to play the entire year since that playoff game last year. I mean, they contended with the future Super Bowl champions. I mean, he stayed in the game with Super Bowl champions. Like, he stayed in the game with Tom Brady. Like, it had a lot to do with defense as well, but, I think the ceiling is definitely breakable on that one. So, all right. So we're going to move on to soccer now. You guys ready for soccer?
Always.
All right. So what do you guys think about the return of Ronaldo?
I couldn't be happier. I mean, as a
Josh
Manchester
last
United
week
fan,
tried to sit here.
Go ahead. No,
Josh
please.
last week tried to sit here and take a crap on Ronaldo. Okay. And what did Ronaldo do? Ronaldo said, let me take my first EPL game in like a dozen years. Let me put the team on my back, put 2 in the net, and win. And then what did he do today in the Champions League game? He's like, we're going to lose because apparently nobody else wants to score. But guess what? I'll score again because I'm Ronaldo. All right. Yeah. I haven't seen Messi do any. He showed up.
Well, look at who Messi plays with, though. Look at who else Messi has on that team. And he's not even starting for the most part. We've covered this already. Ronaldo's going to come in and he's going to beat out Cavani. He's going to beat out Martial. He's going to beat out those guys for the starting spot. He has the experience, and there's not a Manchester United fan that's not going to want to see Ronaldo play if we bring him back. or when we brought him back, we knew he was going to play. Ronaldo is getting a lot of support, though. Like, yes, he's the one scoring goals. Bruno Fernandes not scoring goals is kind of weird for me after he had that hat trick in the opening weekend. So it's a nice reprieve, but at the same time, like, I think Ronaldo's getting it out while he can. Like, he's not really going to keep this up. I see him getting maybe 20, 21 goals this season. I don't see him being the highest goal scorer. I still think that's Romelu Lukaku. But I mean, if he continues this level of play and Fernandes can kind of get going as well, and you see guys like Rashford getting goals and making plays. Manchester United, I said they were a top 4 team when Ronaldo signed on. I think that they could finish top 2 now. I think Chelsea's still my favorite, and they look really good. Liverpool kind of disappointed, but Man U right now is they're on tops just based on goals scored. But they are a legit threat now, and Ronaldo looks a lot better than I gave him credit for. So I'll eat my own words on that. That's fine.
Regardless of Ronaldo, and I know it's the group stage, and it doesn't ultimately matter a whole lot. Horrible loss by Man U today. Horrible loss. You cannot lose to the young boys in the group stage.
I mean, we can, and we did.
You can and you do, right?
Yeah.
It happened. It doesn't negate its terribleness. I mean, it's not Tottenham losing to Crystal Palace necessarily, but
yeah, that's what I was going to cover next. What about that Tottenham meltdown there?
Here's the thing, and Josh, you being the seasoned soccer person here of the two of us, you can elaborate on this. Tottenham fans will tell me, we got a red card. Just wipe away what happened because, once we get the red card, you just throw out the rest. They had more chances after the red card than Crystal Palace did. Crystal Palace ended up getting 2 more goals later on after Tottenham basically gave up.
I think
that was a 1-0 game. They get the red card. They tried to get back in it, actually had some chances, and then they said, oh, well, and you lose to Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, that's the bottom of the bottom. I mean, it's not Arsenal, but it's bad.
It's bad. I'm so happy you said that because that was my joke in the group chat. So, Crystal Palace getting 3 goals on Tottenham is not anything that I could have predicted or saw happening. What I thought was interesting is that you said your team, Brentford, was better than Crystal Palace. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that because I don't know that Brentford's ever beaten Tottenham before, and I doubt that they will this season. So,
time out. Brentford's in their first EPL year. Of course, they haven't beaten anybody yet. They have 1 win. They haven't even played Tottenham yet.
Yeah, that's a lot of excuses I'm hearing from you right now. Still right though. So, So I think you answered it. I think Tottenham, after that red card, they were just kind of demoralized. They weren't really in it. They weren't trying as hard as they should. It was a lot of poor execution. I was kind of watching the highlights back of that game, and I just don't know whether it was lack of coaching, lack of heart. I don't know what it was, but these guys just didn't really seem to care. They would fight in spurts, but as soon as something didn't go their way, or just missed opportunities. I've seen more bad shots this week than I have in EPL for quite some time. So many bad shots taken by so many teams this week. But I feel like it was just one thing after another. Like they were just digging themselves deeper and deeper every time they had a poorly executed play, poorly executed shot, anything. I didn't think that there was a way of them coming back. Even with the flashes that they had, just something was off overall with the team. The red card definitely hurts. I mean, you've played me in FIFA, and every time you get a red card, I absolutely destroy you. So, I mean, it is definitely a factor. So I don't negate the red card, but Tottenham was a huge surprise. I think that they're going to come back, and they're going to come back pretty strong. Watch them over the next 3 or 4 games and see how differently they play. Hopefully differently that they play. But I wouldn't freak out too much. Good teams lose to bad teams all the time. I mean, how many wins is Arsenal going to get this year? 6, maybe. I think last week I said 0. Now I'm going to say 6 because they beat Norwich. But bad teams are going to be good teams eventually. So not every week are you going to be able to come out and win. Maybe not lose that badly. You might get a draw or something with a bad team, but don't worry about it. Again, we're overreacting a little bit, and it's still so early on in the season. So just keep your eyes out. Watch what they do going forward. I think we're going to see them turn around pretty soon.
Kind of the same thing with football. 1 week, so kind of hang in there.
We're in the 4th week of the EPL season. They play 34, 35 games. Relax.
Yeah. Relax. What do you guys have to say about the Champions League start? Who's on top?
I'll let you go first, Dan.
Like I said, as far as Champions League concerned, that's a bad loss for Man U today. Again, group stage, not group stage. You cannot lose to Young Boys. I mean, not even remotely on the same level. So, yeah. I mean, outside of that, I'm trying to bring up the other games that were today that I'm not remembering. Here we go. I mean, Juventus didn't surprise me. I mean, they had an easy go of it. Chelsea won. The biggest thing that surprised me was I watched Bayern and Barcelona, and I thought Bayern would win the game. Barcelona offensively, non-existent. I mean, Bayern scores 3 goals. Lewandowski has 2. I mean, again, not a surprise, but Bayern is not the stoutest of defensive teams necessarily. They're not horrible, but they're not great either. Barcelona has a little bit of firepower. Like, you should be able to net 1.
You should.
1, yes. But let's be honest. If there's a team that's winning, they didn't even play today, it's PSG. That team is still scary. Mbappe is going to figure it out. I've been high on him for a while. He's been underperforming for some time, but he still has a big enough team built around him, especially with Messi now. That team's not fooling anybody. They're going to get pretty far. I mean, I just kind of hit on it too, since you want to talk about Man U not losing to the Young Boys. I just said good teams are going to lose to bad teams. I don't care if it's in group stage. It's 1 game. I don't see that group being hard enough for us to get out of just losing that game. We're going to come back, and we're going to get in, and we're going to move on. That loss early on, I think, kind of settles them down more than anything. Yes, it's not a good look, but at the end of the day, that's going to pay dividends for them. They're going to remember that, and they're not going to make that mistake again. Better to learn that early in the year than late in the year.
Definitely.
Looking at the matches tomorrow, the one that intrigues me the most, and I want to ask you about, Josh, is Man City and Leipzig. Man City the past week in EPL, for all their firepower, they kind of sleptwalked through the game. They won 1-0. And Leipzig is a team that has firepower that, you can't Leipzig games, and it's 4 or 5 goal games. Man City could be in a similar spot as Man U was today, where if they sleepwalk or if they put up a similar spot, they're going to lose.
Yeah, no, they definitely could. I don't think they will, though. And I think that 1-0, as much as I hate City and I loved seeing them struggle, I thought it was a fluke game. Leipzig is a very good team as well. They do have quite a bit of speed on both sides of the ball. Their defending is very, very good, top-notch. The biggest thing, though, is Man City's going to see what just happened to Man U. They're going to understand that. And there's nothing that city loves more than taking the shine away from United. So if they are given the opportunity, they will tighten it up. They will play that little they will put that extra effort into it to beat Leipzig, just to be like, hey, yeah, we only put up one goal in the EPL, but I didn't lose to a bad team in the Champions League either. So, it's just they always do that back and forth. So I'm really not too concerned about it. I think it's going to be close. It'll probably be like 2-1. If I had to guess, the final score would be 2-1. But I think they get it done. I think you see kind of that extra step that you didn't before.
Good. All right. You guys got anything going forward? That's all you're going forward? Anything else to put in for that?
Nope.
All right, good.
No,
All right,
PSG might score 4 tomorrow against your group.
Maybe. All right, let's move on to college football. So, is the Pac-12 legit?
No.
I mean, Oregon beat Ohio State.
Ooh, a 7-5 Ohio State defense got beat by Oregon. Shocking. Nah, Ohio State. I kind of saw the writing on the wall last week, and it was something that Dan and I had talked about previously. That offense is really good. Minnesota didn't have much of a defense, and when Ibrahim went out and got injured, now he's out for the year. Minnesota didn't have any pressure to put on that defense, so you didn't really get to see much from them. Oregon really took them to task and really, kept them on their heels, and they were able to actually put some pressure on that offense. C.J. Stroud did not look as good. Chris Olave, despite what ESPN will tell you, is not the best wide receiver in the country. C.J. Stroud does not throw the ball very well on the run. Granted, he has time to refine that and get better. But what you saw was Oregon capitalizing on an inexperienced Ohio State team that really isn't up to the same standard as they were last year. That offense is very, very good and is going to be scary in the coming years. That defense was not ready. They were not at the caliber that we've seen previous Ohio State defenses. UCLA beat LSU. That was Dan's big get, I think, in week 1. And LSU is not the same LSU that won the national title 2 years ago. Okay, so we're seeing good teams coming out of the Pac-12. They have potential, but you're not seeing USC. You're not really seeing Stanford. You're not seeing these other teams that are up there. If the Pac-12 wants to be legit, they need to have more than just UCLA beating a lackluster LSU team and Oregon beating an underwhelming Ohio State team. You've got to give me something else. I hand it and I give Oregon all the credit in the world for beating Ohio State. Nothing makes me happier knowing that Ohio State's not going to be in the playoff, probably because of this. But I'm not going to say that they're legit. I'm not going to say that they're contenders at this point because I haven't seen a single team that looks like they can win a national championship right now. So it's kind of tough.
Other than Alabama.
No, as an Alabama fan, I will not say Alabama looks like a national title team right now. We let Mercer put up 20 points on us.
That is true.
Unacceptable when you play Florida next week or this week. That's unacceptable. So
we're going to see when it comes to Florida.
Yeah, if Alabama beats on Florida and it's not even close, then I'll say Alabama's back in that national contention. I said it after the Miami game. Miami looked like crap in week 2. So that didn't help my case make me feel any better. Alabama's not there. They beat Florida. We'll talk national titles. Until then, nah. I'm just gonna hold on that for a little bit.
What you got, Dan?
Okay, before I answer the ridiculous question about is the Pac-12, real, back to the Ohio State thing. Again, much like we talked about last week, Ohio State can't play a first half. They always have to put themselves in a hole. Okay, and then, on the heels of asking me about is the Pac-12 legit, you look at that Ohio State-Oregon game, And here was Ohio State being handed multiple chances by Oregon at the end of the game to take it. To just here, have the game. It is yours. And they couldn't take it. So that speaks as much about the inability of Ohio State as it does of Oregon's legitness. Okay? And then you want to ask me, is the Pac-12 legit off of the heels of USC losing to Stanford by 14 and firing their head coach? You want to give me UCLA? Okay, I'm high on Chip Kelly right now. Okay, but, all right, slow the roll there. Okay, again, LSU is an LSU of old. And, looking in the past, we know how Chip Kelly teams usually go. So I don't know how legit we want to UCLA right now. And what, you want to give me ASU? What, because they're ranked? Get away from me. All right. Herm Edwards, great job. But they don't play anybody. Give me a break. All right. The whole, and for people in the chat, because I know we're going to get to this at some point. All right. And the scout talking to as he keeps running his mouth here. Rankings mean nothing. Ranked, unranked means nothing. Survival means everything in college football. Okay. Oh, Notre Dame shook Toledo by 2 touchdowns. Look at ranking, blah, 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 blah. The story's the same for Notre Dame. Okay. Until they can get into the playoff and actually win a damn game, nobody cares. Nobody takes them as legit contenders. So who cares if they win by 2 or by 14 against Toledo? Just get damn win and move on.
I'm so happy that you're frustrated with Notre Dame. I feel like my comment hurt you early on, and you now see the truth to that team. Makes me very happy.
You mean that team?
No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
an with Notre Dame, okay? Because I would have pounded the ceiling. Look at this. He's got hat changes over here. I was pounding the table on Saturday. Do not lay 17.5 with Notre Dame. The play in that game was the over. That was easy. But do not lay 17.5 with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's offense right now is not in a position to be laying that kind of points. And Toledo is not a horrible team. Okay? But the idea of there is a ranking by this team and there's no ranking by this team. So if you don't blow them out, your team is that's horseshit.
Agreed.
Like college football is all about getting the win and moving on. Notre Dame got the win. They move on. They'll need to survive to hopefully maybe back in the playoffs so they can get killed by Alabama again or something. It's the same freaking story over and over and over. Okay. Notre Dame, or if you're Georgia at this point, or if you're Iowa or whoever else, okay? It is about winning football games. Ugly, however you got to do it. Win the game, keep the 0 in the loss column, and move the hell on.
I do just want to point out for you too, Dan. I did say that Arkansas-Texas game was going to kind of be a good benchmark for where Texas is coming into the SEC, and Arkansas steamrolled them. So rankings again mean nothing, because I'm pretty sure Texas was like 15 or 14 in the nation last week, and they got 41 dropped on them by Arkansas, which Arkansas is not by any stretch. So to see Sarkisian, who beat the brakes off of Arkansas for 2 years running, just get absolutely dominated by them now that he's the head coach of Texas, I mean, that tells you where they're coming from. And they want to come into the SEC. It's not going to be pretty for a couple of years. Texas fans are going to be real upset here for a while.
I was actually kind of happy that Texas tanked. I'm tired of hearing about, it's Texas's year. It's like the Cowboys. Oh, it's the Cowboys' year. Oh, it's Ohio State's year. Yeah, bro. Texas is not ready.
I got to point out, too, A&M fans are saying we're the real Texas team.
Texas is not.
A&M fans are saying that. Bro, you beat Colorado 10-7, okay?
Ooh.
Or 10-3.
They should beat Colorado in 2 weeks. It's whatever.
Hey, man. Just saying.
Yeah, I personally went, as you guys know, I personally went to the ASU game this past Saturday. Honestly, in the first half, I was afraid that they were going to lose because they would. I mean, we went into the half at 14-10 and a half. Didn't do crap in the third quarter and blew out in the fourth quarter. So I don't know what changed, what happened, but as far as ASU being legit, I love them to death. That's my team, but they're not legit yet, or probably will be, but we'll see.
I'm glad you said that for the mustache in the chat telling me about how Notre Dame sucks. Notre Dame at least plays legit teams. Okay. We've
Most
been
of
to
the
a
time.
playoff in the last 5 years. ASU wasn't even relevant until Herm Edwards showed up. So stop.
I think
You can't even have that conversation with me.
The last time ASU was legit was like Jake the Snake Plumber.
Ooh.
Like that's literally that's
Exactly.
way back there. You guys are probably babies.
I'm 32,
I was not a
bro.
baby.
I wasn't a baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm 40.
Just
so,
because I got a baby face
Okay, well.
doesn't mean I'm young. Calm down.
Jeff, you can't even recruit in your own state. Anyway,
Ooh.
All right. So, Josh, do you have any college picks?
Yeah, I got two. I'm just pulling it up here right now. I've been trying to find because the line keeps moving so much and it's making me nervous. The Alabama game, I'm taking the over. No, yes, I'm taking the over. I'm trying to find exactly what it's at right now, though. Dan, you'll probably find it faster than I will. While you're looking for that, though, I am going to take sorry, I have my notes here. I'm going to take Virginia Tech minus 5.5 against West Virginia. I think West Virginia has looked good, and it's been kind of interesting. West Virginia's sitting at -3 right now. I actually like Virginia Tech at – it looks like – well, yeah, the actual line right now is West Virginia -3. So Virginia Tech +3, I guess, would be my pick in that game. I'm still going to take Alabama, but I think it's going to be close, so I'm probably going to take whatever Florida's plus line is at right now is probably what I'm going to end up taking there. And then UCF at Louisville, I'm going to take Louisville +9 in that game as well.
All right. 3 things I'm looking at. You mentioned the Alabama game. I'll take Alabama first half. Alabama is all about steamrolling people early, and Florida is no exception. That line is 7.5 for the first half. I think Alabama could be up double digits by the end of the first half without an issue. So I'll take that. We talked about Ohio State, and I talked about how they don't do things in the first half, but they're playing Tulsa this week. That should be a get-right spot for this offense with Ohio State. You got to figure that, you know, they can't get up by double digits against Tulsa in the first quarter. We've got a problem. And Josh, you'll like this one because we had this conversation last week. Friday night, Maryland plays Illinois. Baby Tua is a 7.5-point favorite. I'll lay it with Baby Tua. Illinois doesn't impress me.
Yeah.
Baby Tua up here lighting up people left and right, saying, don't worry about that guy in Miami. I'm the real guy around here. Terps, 7.5 Friday night. I'll take that.
That's a good bet. I was looking at that. I just wasn't sure. But knowing that you're taking it, I'm a little less comfortable in Baby Tua now, considering how you've done it.
Oh, man. All right. So that's going to be
all right, Matthew. I know you are out of time, so we will relieve you from your hosting duties. Thank you for joining us. I will take it over from here.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you later.
Hey, thanks, Matt.
All right. Take a moment here to get out of here. There we go. Be gone. Just you and me now, Beardy. We had the conversation a couple of weeks ago about MLB and their Field of Dreams game and how they were going to do it again. They would probably just make it worse and worse as they were going along. So now word has come out that the NBA is looking at an outdoor game, which is something I've been talking about for a long time. And Josh, you being out there in Minnesota, you might not know about these types of things, but there is only one spot that you can do this at. One. Okay, if you do it anywhere else, I don't care. Go to New York, clear it out, make it as nice as you want to. Rucker Park. That's it. There's no other discussion.
Yeah, as soon as this topic was brought up and they mentioned that they were going to be doing an outdoor game, I was like, well, New York. I always thought about pickup games, and I couldn't remember the name of the park, and that's because I'm a Midwesterner and I'm uncultured when it comes to the ways of New York City. But yeah, Rucker Park, that makes perfect sense to me. I think that is the perfect venue. The only other, and the only thing I'll challenge you with that on is I could see a pickup game, like an NBA game at something like Venice Beach in LA. I could see it. I think that setting would be interesting. It would kind of bring both sides of basketball kind of together. If you did one at each, or if you like alternated years in each location, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, I could definitely see it. Rucker Park is a great idea. I love this for the NBA. I think it'll be interesting, and I want to see that kind of feel. I don't want it to be like, if I'm doing an outdoor game, I kind of want to have that feel of the city. So clean it up, do whatever you need to, but like, give me that feel that I'm actually in Rucker Park. I don't want it to be like, oh, this is just an NBA outdoor game. Embrace the fact that you're there. Make it look like it's still Rucker Park. Don't change it too much. But bring it there and have some teams there. Like put Brooklyn in there, or put the Knicks in there. And like you could do a Knicks Celtics game at Rucker Park. I'd watch that, and I don't even like basketball. But you give me something like that in that setting, I think it's a great idea.
Well, here's the two big reasons why it's got to be Rucker Park and nothing else. And I totally get your LA thing, and it's totally viable, especially considering when the NBA is typically played. You know, well, you got to do it in LA because it's warm all year. You know, you don't want to do an outdoor game in January in New York City. You know, blah, blah, blah. Two reasons why Rucker Park is the only option. Okay, besides all the obvious reasons Rucker Park is the only option. The NBA already does things to keep Rucker Park as, you know, nice and, you know, up to code and whatnot as my dog starts to go nuts. That's always great feedback. But the NBA is already doing things to keep the area of Rucker Park, you know, good, you know, putting new rims in, you know, all kinds of stuff, you know, doing bleachers, things like that. And two, in the off season, when NBA guys decide, you know, if they're not like with their team at the gym or whatever, and they're just doing pickup games, you know where they're playing pickup games? At Rucker Park. To area for these guys. These guys know Rucker Park. They go there. They play in these pickup games. You know, the rims aren't going to be new. You know, none of it. Okay? Yeah, you're going to probably have to make some adjustments for the TV crew and you know, you might have to expand bleachers and things like that to try and, you know, get it beyond, you know, I don't know how many people Rucker Park hold these days. Probably a few hundred. Maybe 1,000. You know, so obviously going to want to get more people in there than that. But I was going to say, from a history, nostalgia, look, feel, all of it, it's Rucker Park. There's no other options. Okay. And to further the point, you're not a basketball guy and you know Rucker Park. That's all that needs to be known. Okay? All I have to do is say Rucker Park and people know what the hell I'm talking about. And they're not even basketball people.
Now, the one thing I am going to challenge you on is I feel like if they do it at Rucker Park, they do have like the bleachers and everything there. They're going to have to make way for a TV crew and stuff like that. I don't want them trying to pack as many people as they can in there. I really want it to have that natural feel. Yeah, you can fit a couple hundred people in there. That's great. But don't try and pack thousands of people there. Like, don't do that.
No. I don't want. Yeah. No. You're right. I don't want 20,000 people at this thing. Okay. I think now I don't live in New York and I haven't been to Rucker Park in years. So don't hold me to this by any means. Okay. The last I remember, there were bleachers on each side. Okay. I think maybe 2 on each side. Okay. I think that was the extent of the bleachers. Now, if you want to go fill both sides completely across where you go 5-6 bleachers deep, ultimately that's fine. But that's about the extent that you can go where, we still get the appropriate feel and you're good for TV people. All right. Any more than that, then yeah, like you said, we're losing grips.
Yeah, I think that'd be perfect. And I don't want it to be like a celebrity packed bleachers either. I think it'd be cool to just have like the local kids that live in and around Rucker Park, like have them there.
Yeah, get your boys and girls clubs, get your YMCA's, get your rural New York kids there that want to see, Kevin Durant up close or Julius Randle up close or whatever.
Yeah, perfect for that. I dig this idea. This is the first idea that's come out of the NBA in a while that's actually intrigued me and made me want to watch it.
The only idea that I could hear from a basketball standpoint that would make me any more excited than this is LeBron going away.
Yeah, absolutely. But please start this after LeBron so I don't have to see LeBron play in Rucker Park. Oh my God, I'd be so happy.
So LeBron, with his balding, looks old enough to play with most of the guys that play at Rucker Park at this point.
That's true.
All right. So baseball, we are in the stretch run here. But first, before we dive into the last couple of weeks, let's talk about the one good thing the Mets have managed to do this year, and that was not sign Trevor Bauer, because Trevor Bauer has been on this leave that Rob Manfred put him on, and each week, each time it gets extended weeks ago, which was Trevor Bauer was never going to play again this year. It finally came out that Trevor Bauer will not play again this year. And, of course, Trevor Bauer and his agents have to spin this as this was their idea because they didn't want to be a distraction to the Dodgers. The Dodgers don't want him there. The guys in the clubhouse don't want him there. And it's not they don't want him there now. They don't want him there ever again. Okay? Trevor Bauer was the type of guy that with his ego and his how do I want to put this? Assholeness, his talent outweighed it. Okay, he's coming off a year, a Cy Young year. Okay, so yeah, you could outweigh the bad with, as long as the guy takes him out every 5 days and shoves, I'll deal with it. Okay, let us not forget how his free agency went when he basically put up shirts on his website saying he was signing with the Mets, only to 12 hours later go, oh, wait, agent / girlfriend / whatever the hell she is, basically put out on Twitter all offseason, oh, pitch us ideas on why we should go to your team. Like it's a damn PR stunt. So Trevor Bauer is kryptonite to baseball teams. I don't know that. Okay, now barring him somehow getting through this legal process unscathed, which I find very hard to believe that he gets unscathed. Does he get pounded? Probably not pounded. Does he get nicked? Likely he gets nicked, but not unscathed. I find it very hard to believe that any baseball team, regardless of the price, would take on that sort of PR nightmare after this. I think he's done. And execs have said as much. Like, they don't want to go near him.
There's probably not going to be a team like you said. It sounds like he's pretty much done. And I feel like Trevor Bauer has been at the heart of what's wrong with baseball from a player standpoint for the last probably 3-4 seasons. I mean, the whole spider tack thing revolves around Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer was the one that was trying to figure out how these guys were doing it. I think he's the one that found spider tack, so the rumors go, and he's the one that utilized it and kind of made and bolstered his career based on it. So you have that stigma already attached to him. Now you have these new allegations that are attached to him, and this is just kind of like a nail in the coffin. It's almost like it's very Pete Rose-esque. I feel like the way that they're pushing him out and shaming him for what's going on and kind of everything that he's done. But he's also not the caliber player that Pete Rose ever was, so you're never going to hear from this guy again. Like, when he's done, as long as he's done and he doesn't come out of this unscathed, you're never going to hear from him again as far as a player standpoint. He's not going to be making appearances and signing autographs at Dodgers games or Reds games or wherever. People aren't going to care that much. They might see him on the street and get him to sign some spider tack jars. Like, that would be funny. I would probably do that. But this guy, I watched his videos because he has his own YouTube channel, and like during the season he would go through and just kind of vlog his weekly routine and like what he was doing, getting ready, and how he would shit talk batters that he knew and would tell him what pitch is coming and had that arrogance, which is fine. I expect that out of a pitcher. But what really like turned me off to him and where I was really like, this guy's done, was it was the allegations had come out, but he had just put out a video about what's legal and what's not legal when it comes to messing with the ball and messing with your hands. And what he did was took the rosin bag and some water and he just mixed it in. Pedro Martinez did this on ESPN as well, but he packed it all the way into the point where he could just hold the ball like this with just rosin and water. He had it just attached to his palm. So the guy was kind of making a mockery of it and trying to show how dumb that Major League Baseball was for allowing things like this and having things like this happen. But at the same time, he's just making himself out to be a douchebag. It's very A-Rod-esque in as far as arrogance goes with it. He would never openly admit to cheating, but he's actively showing you, like, if I'm going to, almost OJ-esque, I would say, I didn't do it, but if I did, this is what I would do, or this is how you do it, kind of deal. So I don't foresee him coming back. I don't know of a team that's going to take him. And there's teams that could definitely use him, but I don't think you want that PR. Granted, we've said that about a number of players before in other sports, and they come back. So we'll see. It doesn't look good, but you never know. He could always find his way back in.
First off, just based off of the allegations, I don't think that Trevor Bauer can go on Dancing with the Stars. I think that's just a mess waiting to happen. But what's funny is you said you watched his YouTube and that's what turned you off. That was actually what was kind of endearing me a little bit to him, because especially during the COVID season and when they were going back and forth about trying to get a deal done to start, was the guy that was really kind of at the forefront of calling Manfred out on Manfred's BS. And that's been a running thing on this show even before you and I started on my old show, about just continually calling out Manfred and all his just continual mistakes over and over and over, and how he's driving the game into the ground. So Bauer was kind of doing that, and for a player to kind of be in front of the camera and calling him out, it endeared me a little bit to him. And also, he was also talking about the other big problem that baseball has, which is getting to the youth. And he had some creative ways, and he was doing some of them himself as a way to kind of get to younger people and make them more excited. So all of those things were good. But you'll always get that there's always people, whether it's people you work with or people you know or whoever, that when they talk to you, the way they talk to you, no matter how they say it in a way that just comes off like condescending or just like, I'm trying to be nice, but deep down inside, I'm an asshole. And ultimately, that's Trevor Bauer. So despite everything he may have done that was good and endearing, at the end of the day, at his core, he's an asshole, and that ultimately didn't work well. Okay, so apparently I have lost Josh. Josh's internet has gone down, so Josh will work on getting himself back in here. In the meantime, let's talk about the stretch run of baseball. The Giants clinched the playoffs last night. They are the first team in the postseason. They are 2.5 ahead of the Dodgers at the moment. There we go. I think we've got Josh back. You have returned, Beard.
I am back. I had an internet issue. I apologize. That's my first time.
Your internet taking crap, not mine.
Yeah, I suppose that's karma.
I'll say reversing roles. Anyway, so talking about the stretch run in baseball, Giants clinched the playoffs last night. They're the first team to do so. They have a 2.5 game lead on the Dodgers. They're currently playing the Padres in a series. After that, they've got Atlanta to play the Padres 10 games down the stretch here. The 4-game series they're in now, and then 2 more 3-game series with them. In between, they've got Atlanta, Colorado, and Arizona. The Dodgers are playing Arizona right now. Then they've got Cincinnati, who's battling for the wild card, Colorado, Arizona, San Diego, and Milwaukee at the end. Milwaukee will probably be set up for the postseason by then, as they'll have the division wrapped up. So I'm not sure how willing they'll be able to battle the Dodgers at that point. To catch them, it ultimately comes down to, I think, for the Giants and winning the division is what is San Diego? How much do you believe in San Diego? I mean, they're throwing Jake Arrieta tonight, who is just a trash can. They just lost Blake Snell. They lost their second best hitter in Jake Cronenworth to a fractured finger. Everything that could possibly be going wrong for the Padres is going wrong right now. And, with 10 of their last, what are we looking at? Let's see here, 4-3. 10, basically half of their remaining games being against the Padres. If the Padres aren't going to give them a fight, it'll be really hard for the Dodgers, even at 2.5 back, to make up the ground. And as much as the Dodgers don't necessarily want to be in a 1-game playoff, the Dodgers are a lot better suited for it than the Giants are. So the Giants, I think, would be more willing to push forward to hold on to that division than the Dodgers will be to hunt down if it looks like it's all but lost.
I think, honestly, San Diego is going to end up just playing spoiler. Like, they are a good team, but like you said, they've lost their second best hitter. They've got Arrieta thrown tonight. Arrieta's not the Arrieta of old, so it's a completely different guy for the most part. He's just not on the same level anymore. San Diego is good enough, though, that they can take some of these games, some of these crucial wins that are needed by LA. They can take them away. So I agree with you. The Dodgers, I think, are more built to survive a one-game playoff. I think the Giants need to kind of hold on to that division and kind of sell out a little bit more, which doesn't bode well for them once they get into the playoffs. They may overextend a little bit. But I'm just not sold fully on San Diego yet. I mean, Tatis Jr. is going to be the best player in baseball probably next year. He's looking like it right now, even though you have kind of Vladdy and Ohtani going back and forth with a home run race a little bit. But San Diego's just not quite there yet. They have the pieces in place to do it. They're just not there this year. It's going to be interesting to see with free agency kind of what happens in LA, what happens in San Francisco. There's some pieces that are going to move there. But I see the Giants kind of staying on top. I see LA kind of being in a better position to actually contend and make a deeper playoff run. But those two teams I see battling it out, and it's going to be interesting and entertaining to watch, at least for the rest of the season down the stretch here.
Whoever doesn't win that division will get a wild card spot. I mean, they have a huge lead for that first wild card. So, no, whoever loses is not in danger of missing. There's really a battle for that second are in that second wild card spot by a half game. Both the Padres and Cardinals are a half game out. Phillies are 2.5 out. Mets are 3.5 out. And when you look at the remaining schedule for these teams, the winning percentage of their opponents is almost 550. After they get done, I already told you about the 10 games with the Giants. Their other 9 are the Cardinals, the Braves, and the Dodgers. Okay, so that's a murderer's row of all teams that need wins down the stretch. So I don't – San Diego did as far as when it comes to getting in the postseason. The Reds, who currently have that lead for the wild card, are 6 more times down the stretch. They've also got 4 with the lowly Nationals. Outside of that, they've got 2 with the White Sox and 3 with the Dodgers. So it's really the Reds need to beat up on who they've got. Okay, between the 9 with the Pirates and the 4 with the Nationals, that's 13 of your last 17 games against just bottom dwellers. So the Reds have it's in their hands. They couldn't ask for a better situation. They have by far they actually have the second easiest road of the teams in contention, and considering they have the lead right now, obviously destiny appears to be in their hands. The Cardinals, who are right behind, their combined winning percentage of opponents down the stretch is 510. They're playing the Mets right now for 3. Then they get San Diego, Milwaukee for 4, Chicago with 4. So basically, outside of the Mets and San Diego, they've got 7 with the Brewers and 7 with the Cubs down the stretch. The Cubs are obviously the Cubs, although the Cubs have been playing pretty well lately. So I don't know that I would necessarily call them throwaways. That first Brewers series, I think the Brewers will probably be looking to clinch up the division. So you'll probably get prime Brewers there down at the end there. Maybe not so much. The Cardinals have been an up and down team, though. Outside of when Wainwright pitches, I'm not sure I trust anybody else in that rotation to get them W's. So I don't trust them a whole lot. Frankly, I trust them about as much as the next 2 teams I'm going to talk about, which is the remaining teams in the East, which is the Phillies and the Mets. Phillies have the easiest road of anybody. Their combined winning percentage of opponents is 459. They're playing the Cubs right now. Then they get the Mets for 3. Then their next 7 games after that are the Orioles and the Pirates. And then they finish with 3 in Atlanta and 3 in Miami. So Miami, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh are 10 of the remaining 19 games. So, I mean, as the Phillies could get their stuff together for 2.5 weeks, they could make a run. But the Phillies haven't been able to get their stuff together for 6 months. So why would I expect them to get it together for them up at this point? They're playing St. Louis right now. They've got Philly for 3, Boston for 2, Milwaukee for 3, Miami for 4, Atlanta for 3. They're not going to get the division. you know, the game against it seems like every time they start to make a push, they have a game where they're right there that they could win and they find a way to lose, and it puts them right back down, and it just kills any momentum and takes any shot. They could have swept the Yankees. They didn't do that. The series before, they had a game they should have won when everybody in the division lost. They didn't do that. I mean, they're constantly take a step forward, 2 steps back. They're not going to everything they've done. We've talked about it, and I've gone on rants about it. They need a massive overhaul this offseason. I feel like I say that every offseason. The NL wild card's concerned, it is basically the Reds just not choking it away.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what's happening with the Cardinals and the Phillies. They both have the potential to get there. Baltimore surprisingly seems to have been playing spoiler a bit too recently. They've been winning some games that we wouldn't necessarily think they would win, and they're beating teams that they shouldn't. Like, was it a 3 or 4 game series with the Mets where I'm pretty sure they took at least 1, if not 2. If it was a 4 game series, I think they split. If it was a 3 game series, I think they at least took 1. That's a game where that's a series. If you're the Mets, you need to be sweeping the Orioles. There's no excuse not to at this point. Same thing with the Pirates. If you're not sweeping the Pirates with the way that they're playing, you're really not trying. So Philly's schedule looks like it's very easy for them to get in. I mean, the Reds, yes, you're right. They just have to maintain. The Phillies, I like their chances. I also like the Cardinals. I think that they still have the ability to put it together. Speaking of the Cardinals, I do want to touch on something we spoke about previously. Did you get your answers on the Cardinals and how they felt about Pujols and Yachty and Wainwright going out together?
I got a few responses, and it surprisingly was as split as I thought it might be. Although I kind of expected a little more on the nostalgia side. I mean, there is a group of people who look at their Tyler O'Neills and their Tommy Edmonds, and want to kind of start going down on a youth road, and have kind of gotten to the point where for all of Yachty's and Wainwright's, and at this point, I would much more be clamoring for Wainwright to come back than Yachty. Like I said, Wainwright's the only guy in that rotation I trust every week. But they kind of agreed with what I said last week about how much does Pujols really add. But then there's the other group who says, look at the way the team is constructed right now. I mean, look at that infield. You have Goldschmidt at one corner. You have Arenado at the other corner. You've got Yachty, rotation pieces. You assume Flaherty will be back next year. Hopefully they'll figure out Mikolas's issues. They're like, you bring in Pujols, assuming the DH is there next year. He doesn't have to be the everyday DH. Pujols still hits their veteran guy on the bench. They find ways to make it work, which I get all of that. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's cases to be made on both sides. I mean, there wasn't an overwhelming response for either. I'll put it that way.
Okay, fair enough. Just curious. I know that was a point of contention.
Yeah. Yes. It was an interesting debate that we had last week. Okay, so on the AL wildcard side, right now Toronto is the leader. They have a game lead on both the Yankees and Red Sox, kind of in it. Seattle's 2 back, Oakland's 2.5 back. You look at the remaining schedule. The Red Sox and Mariners are playing right now. After that, look at the Red Sox remaining schedule. Their opponents' combined winning percentage is .470. After Seattle, they've got 3 with the Orioles, 2 with the Mets, 3 with the Yankees, again another 3 with Baltimore, and then they finish out with the Nationals. So it sets up really well for the Red Sox and my ticket of the Red Sox making the playoffs. The Yankees remaining schedule, they had that one game with your Twins there yesterday, which the Twins managed to cough up after having a 5-0 lead. They're starting a 3-game series with the O's tonight. Then they've got 3 with Cleveland, 3 with Texas, 3 with Boston, 3 with Toronto, and 3 with Tampa. The Tampa series at the end is interesting because Tampa will probably have the division locked up by then. So how interested will Tampa be in potentially playing a spoiler to the Yankees? If I was Tampa, I would be very interested in playing spoiler to the A's, who have been hot as anybody right now. They're playing the Rays as we speak. They'll have another 3 games with Tampa. So basically they have 6 with Tampa, 7 with your Twins, 3 with the Yankees, and 3 with the Orioles down the stretch. 7 games with the Twins sets them up pretty well. The A's, who, even though they're 2.5 back, I left them for dead a couple of weeks ago. They've got 3 with the Royals, 3 with the Angels, 4 with Seattle, 3 with Houston. Basically, 3 with Kansas City, 3 with the Angels, then 7 with Seattle and Houston. I don't think you're going to get much help from Houston down the stretch there. All right. Despite the fact that Houston has a pretty big lead in the division. Let me double check exactly how big that is. Yeah, 6.5 over Seattle. They're not exactly looking over their shoulder. Even though they might have it wrapped up, I don't see them helping out the A's. And the Mariners, who were desperately trying to find their way into the postseason for the first time in 20 years, they're playing Boston right now. Then they have the Royals for 3, and then they finish up Oakland for 7 and the Angels for 6. I think, listen, the Blues are set up pretty well. Okay? They are the 2, I think, front runners right now, just based off of the schedule and how they're playing to get in. The Yankees are so Jekyll and Hyde that I can't say with any conviction they can get it together. Because every time it looks like they get it together, they just don't win for 2 weeks. Plus, I just would like nothing more than the Yankees not to make the playoffs. I think, and again, they're a lot like the Mets. They take a step forward, then they take 2 steps back. The Mariners, if they can get it together, the schedule sets up pretty well. All right? If they can survive Boston, they're playing Kansas City right now. He isn't a pushover, but it's a series they can win. And then, Oakland is a series you'll have to battle because they're battling with you. But again, if you're going to get in, you got to beat them. And then you've got the Angels, who have, they're the Angels. They're a 500 team. If you're going to make the playoffs, you got to beat them. So if Seattle can get it together here down the stretch for 20 games and get a little help, Seattle can find a way in. They're the only if you're looking for somebody outside of the Red Sox and Blue Jays, I'm staring at the Mariners to find a way in.
How many games back are they right now?
2. The Mariners are 2 back, I believe. Let me see.
2 back on the last.
Yeah, they're 2.
Okay. I mean, I have to agree with you. I think the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are the easy pick. I don't see the Yankees making it, and I think that Tampa Bay is going to absolutely love being the team that gets to keep them from getting into the playoffs. All the years that Tampa Bay was just getting beat on by the Yankees, I feel like it's finally a good time to kind of get this all taken care of and wrap it up for at least one season where we don't have to worry about the Yankees in postseason. I personally, as a fan of the Mariners, would love nothing more than to see them in the playoffs. I had season tickets when I lived out there. It was great. Safeco Field, for as old as it is one of the nicest ballparks I've ever been in. But that team just honestly deserves it. They've had so many opportunities. They've had so many teams that should have gotten there that just haven't done it. I mean, when they had Robinson Cano and they had, King Felix and they had Kyle Seager, all these guys that were performing really well, and they just couldn't put it all together. They do still have to fight for it. I mean, 2 games back with playing the A's and being with the Red Sox right now, it's tough. I think this is really an opportunity for them to kind of get out of that funk. I think if they can somehow pull it together and edge out the Red Sox and make the playoffs for the first time in 20 years, I think we kind of see them play a little bit more seriously and start acting like actual contenders, not necessarily for a World Series, but deeper playoff runs going forward. That team still has talent. They've always kind of been there. They've taken a beating and they've dropped off because their development doesn't seem to be that great. But we're seeing just a little bit more grit. We're seeing a little bit better play, and it's just nice overall to see it. They would be my dark horse as well. The Angels you got to beat. It's tough to say where they're going to end up. Playing in division is always tougher at the end of the year. So if they can pull out 6 if they take 4 out of 6 against the Angels, I would consider that a win. They have a 3-game series with Oakland. They need to win 2 at least. And then is this their first game with Boston tonight, or is this like second game?
First game with Boston.
Okay, so they need to win. If they can just win the series, they don't have to sweep anything. But if they can just win those 3 series, or at least take 1 from Oakland, don't get swept by Oakland. Try and take 2 from Boston, and take 4 out of 6 with the A's, and I think they have a pretty good chance. I don't think anybody's touching the Blue Jays right now. That team's just stacked. They've got
to make the move here in this Boston series. They've got to at least, like I said, they're 2 back coming into the series. They've got to, when that series is done, it's got to be 1 or less. You cannot, if that lead widens, then you've really made it that much more difficult on yourself. So by the end of this week, I think you'll have a pretty good idea of whether the Mariners still have a beat. 2 for our last topic is, Josh, you'll remember we had a clamoring from the group 1 week about Bryce Harper and how Bryce Harper was the NL MVP. So I just wanted to dive into this a little bit because I thought this was really interesting for the group. Things that needed to be heard. Okay. Tatis is the guy who is winning MVP. Let's just say that right now. And let me now validate why Tatis is winning the MVP. Tatis, since the All-Star break, has a 954 OPS. And let us not forget that the one shortstop is now center. He's played the corner, and he hasn't looked, let alone lost, but he's looked pretty good. Now, for the Bryce Harper group, let's give Harper his praise. Since the All-Star break, he's hitting 341, 17 homers, and a major league best 1211 OPS. He leads the majors in OPS and OPS plus. Okay, that's all the good news about Bryce Harper. Okay, now again, he leads the league in OPS and OPS plus. Tatis leads the league in home runs, slugging, and win probability. Oh, also he's second in stolen bases. Hello,
I think we know.
All right, and. Now, mind you, if one of these teams gets hot down the stretch and one gets in the playoffs and the other one doesn't, maybe that sways things. But stop. Bryce Harper's not MVP. Bryce Harper's not MVP. It's not close. Okay. And they were talking about other guys to give consideration to. All right. The Reds are – we just talked about the Reds and how they're likely going to make the postseason. You going to tell me I can't make a case for Joey Votto to be MVP? You're going to tell me I can't make a case for the Braves, who are probably going to win the NL East. And without Ronald Acuna, I can't make a case for Freddie Freeman to be an NL MVP. I mean, both of those guys I'm putting – I mean, I could make – I brought up Freddie Freeman. Austin Riley's another guy on the Braves you can make a case for. Trey Turner got traded, but Trey Turner's having a good year. Another name that could be brought up. Bryce Harper is not the MVP. Just put that to bed. Now, for as good as my Red Sox to make the playoffs bet looks, my Shohei MVP bet is getting a little shaky for more than I would like it to be. Because Vlad is charging and charging hard. He was tied for first in batting average as of a couple of days ago. I don't know where he is right now. I'd have to look. But so he's among the leaders in batting average. He's now the leader in home runs, and he is second or third in RBIs. He could win the Triple Crown. On top of that, he's first in on base percentage, second only by a point as of a couple of days ago in slugging percentage. Combine that with the fact that since the All-Star break, Shohei's hitting only 224 with an 815 OPS. It's getting dicey. Ultimately, because Ohtani pitches and because of how good he has been on the mound, I still feel he will win the award. But with the Blue Jays making the push to get the wild card, and assuming they get it, and looking at Vlad potentially being a Triple Crown or leading in multiple categories, this is getting way too close than it needed to be. I thought I had already had this thing cashed 2 months ago. Vlad needs to go away.
Dude, I hate to tell you this, but he is on top in batting average. He's at 318 right now. Then you have Uriel at 316, Brantley at 315, Teoscar Hernandez at 308. So he's kind of he's out in front. I mean, he could definitely lose it, but he's up there. He leads in on-base percentage at 407 right now. Leads in slugging percentage at 612. Runs scored at 114, hits at 171, total bases at 329, home runs at 45, adjusted OPS, runs created, adjusted batting runs, like batting wins, offensive WAR. He's got a lot of things. Ohtani has he's got WAR overall at 7.7, and that's the last time I'm seeing him on any batting leaderboard right now, any stat anyway in the American League. He's just not I take that back. Intentional walks, he has 12, and he's been caught stealing 9 times. So at bats per home run, he's at 10.8, so he's still up there. And his win probability is 4.4. So that's where he leads. So as far as the actual batting goes, it's Guerrero. I do agree with you that as far as from the pitching and batting standpoint, Ohtani does hold that lead there. But yeah, Guerrero's come on strong right when he needs to at the end of the season to help his team. That's real bad news for your Ohtani MVP bet.
I need Ohtani to when last start he could have got win 10 and it was not a good start. I need Ohtani to go out in that next start and be lights out Ohtani. Get win number 10, throw 5-6 innings, lock down and just kind of make a statement. Okay. And also wake up the bat the last 2 weeks. You can't be just in sleep mode here down the stretch while Vlad is carrying his team to a wild card. Not helpful. Voters have recency bias. All right. So last topic here. We'll we Cy Young and stuff when we get closer. I'm not worried about that. But the last topic here is I need Bleacher Report always likes to put out lists. And I don't know. I feel like Bleacher Report is a step above Fansite with their writers. Like they just take on anybody. Anybody who says, "Oh, I know sports, I can write." Let's just talk them all. So they came out with this list, and Josh, you looked at this list too. They ranked the top 25 free agents coming up this offseason in baseball. All right. And they talked about, they didn't talk about guys with options, like Aaron, Kimbrel could opt out with the White Sox. Miley's having a nice year with the Reds. He could opt out. Posey could opt out. Jose Ramirez could even opt out, but these are just outside of Arenado. All of those guys have club options, and the Cubs will probably pick those up. So look at the list. All right. So first off, just looking at, we'll take it in sections of 5 here, Josh. We'll make it easy. So 25 through 21. All right. They have Syndergaard at 25. All right. Obviously, he hasn't come back yet. Maybe we'll see him for a couple of weeks. Maybe we won't. Probably won't. Likely. I get all the reasons. Okay. And I didn't even necessarily have a problem with him being at 25. But for him to be at 25, that means that the people ahead of him have to be better. Somebody tell me where Steven Matz, number 22 on this list, is better than Noah Syndergaard. Okay? And this is coming from a guy who had them both in the rotation. Okay, I know he's 11-7, a 3.70 ERA, and yeah, he's not coming off of Tommy John or whatever. But Matz is about to be 30. Okay, Syndergaard's a year younger, and his ceiling is way higher. Okay, Steven Matz is a 3, maybe a 4 starter in your rotation. Syndergaard at his peak is a 2. At his worst is a 3. There is nobody in their right mind in a free agency ranking that is putting Steven Matz ahead of Noah Syndergaard. So there's problem number 1.
Yeah, Thor being Thor, that was the first thing I told you about when I looked at that list.
20 through 15 is, or 20 through 16 is whatever. I mean, Carlos Rodon, Zach Greinke. Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We've got a delay, so my bad. The biggest thing here, and I agree with you, Thor at 25 on this list, and yeah, he's 29, so he's a year younger. He is coming off of surgery, so I get that there is a little bit of how's he going to come back? Is he still going to be the Thor of old? Are we going to see him kind of take a step back now after surgery and everything? I see it. Steven Matz, though, has no business being above him. And the first thing that I told you when I looked at this list is the absolute disrespect of putting Syndergaard at 25. Like, out of everybody on this list, he's the last one. He's the one that you put last. I'm not even big on Kyle Schwarber, even though he's having a good year. Schwarber's having a good year, but he's very inconsistent. So the fact that you put Thor at the bottom of every pitcher that's on this list too. There are some that I would definitely take above him. Zach Greinke's not one of them at the age of 37, unless I'm getting Greinke on a 1-year deal, hope and prayer kind of deal. And I know that we're going to get to him in a minute, but like the fact that you have Thor last, it has to be injury based. That's the only logic I can think of with them doing that. And even that doesn't make sense to me because, as you said, at his peak, he's a number 2. At his worst, he's a 3. Steven Matz is a 4 at best. And probably going to be a 5 starter unless he comes to the Twins, in which case I'm sure they'll probably make him a number 2 or something like that. But, yeah, it's just a horrible start to this list, and it only gets worse.
You mentioned Greinke. Like I said, he's number 20 on this list. Whatever. I'm not – 20 through 16, I'm not going to pick apart. I mean, it's all guys that I really don't – again, outside of Carlos Rondon, who's had a nice bounce back year, nobody that I really think, is overly noteworthy. 15 through 11 is interesting. 15 is Anthony Rizzo. 14 is Javi Baez. 13 is Clayton Kershaw. 12 is Starling Marte. 11 is Marcus Stroman. This is completely screwed up. 100% screwed up. Okay? If you are going to put Syndergaard at 25 based off of his injuries, then tell me how Clayton Kershaw at age 33, who hasn't pitched a full season in, I couldn't tell you, probably 3-4 years, is 13 on this list. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. Rizzo should definitely – I lied. Rizzo's a year younger. Okay? You're going to tell me Rizzo isn't ahead of Kershaw? All right? Baez is 28, despite all of Baez's warts. All right? Marte, I think, should be top 10, all right, despite his age. All right? And Stroman at 11 is too – Stroman's having a nice year, but, again, recency bias at his finest. Stroman's not 11. So I have all kinds of problems between 15 and 11. I don't know how you feel, but that 15 through 11 was major eye-popping, especially when you have Kershaw in there.
I don't think Kershaw should even be on this list, honestly, because I don't honestly think the Dodgers let him get to free agency. I think they signed him long before that even starts. So I don't know why he's on the list, but I agree. You should definitely have Rizzo above Kershaw. Javi Baez, maybe you keep him below Kershaw just based on personality type and the issues that are going on there. So maybe from an executive level, you keep him behind Kershaw. But Kershaw hasn't played a full season in years. He is an injury concern. He's an industry risk, but he's going back to the Dodgers. I don't see the Dodgers letting him leave. He's going to stay there for the rest of his career, so he shouldn't be mentioned on this list. I agree with Marte, even though 32, he definitely deserves to be in that top 10. Guy's been consistent his entire career. He's always putting up decent numbers at the very least. So putting him in the top 10, he's going to be a good get. He's going to be viable. We haven't seen any signs of him slowing down yet. So signing him to a couple-year deal and putting him in the top 10 makes perfect sense. Stroman, I'm not too mad at 11. I think that he's been good. He's going to – I mean, if it was me, I'd probably re-sign him if I was the Mets, just based on what could potentially happen with Thor. Like he's not a bad keep. But, I mean, going back to Stroman, too, at the age of 30, if you give me the choice between Syndergaard and Stroman and I have to keep one, I'm keeping Syndergaard. So putting him at 11 is a little bit outlandish there too.
Well, also, despite the age, coming off the injury, you could re-sign Syndergaard to a short-term, low-money, show-me-prove-it deal. Whereas if you're 36 at big money, okay, and despite all the question marks in the rotation, I'm not sure that, and despite how good he's been this year, I'm not sure that I'm willing to sign up for 5-6 years of Marcus Stroman at big money to, be the number 2 or 3 of my rotation. I have to be really sure about the top half's health and, not knowing what I'm getting from Syndergaard and, everything else with that rotation. I'm not sure that I'm willing to anchor myself to Stroman. Now we get to the top 10, and now we just get to all kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. Nick Castellanos is at 9. Nick Castellanos, by the way, 139 OPS, 35 doubles, 27 home runs, and a WAR over 3. And that's number 9 on this list. Okay, that's a problem. Problem for me, Josh. Number 7 is Freddie Freeman, who I think there is a decent shot we'll get to Freeman. Okay, so his name's ahead of Freddie Freeman. Max, who, okay, too much with Chris Bryant, Marcus Semien, Trevor Story, Corey Seager, Carlos Correa. First off, I don't agree for a second Carlos Correa is the number 1 free agent in this class. Okay? I certainly don't think Trevor Story is number 3. And are you going to tell me that those 6 guys are better than Freddie Freeman?
No. Not a chance.
The only knock you're going to give me on Freeman is he's 31. Okay? And if the knock on Freeman is he's 31, well, then guess what? Semien is 30. Bryant's 29. Story's going to be 29. I mean, the only young guys you're getting are Correa and Siegel in that list. So give me a break. And here's the other thing. Okay? And this was the number 1 thing that jumped out. You know who's not on this list? Tell me why Justin Verlander isn't on this list.
How old is Verlander? He's like 38 or 39, yeah? He's pushing 40, if not at 40.
He's not at 40. He's old.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. Okay? I bet you if I reached out to the writer and said, why isn't Verlander on this list? He age, injury. Okay? He's late 30s. He's coming off Tommy John. Okay? I get all of that. Are you going to tell me, okay, Josh, by all means, tell me you disagree with this. Are you going to tell me that Justin Verlander is not going to come back next year? And mind you, first year off of Tommy John is always a little rough for guys. Usually it's year 2 where they look more of themselves. Okay. But all right, assuming Verlander is good and ready to go come April as far as pitching, and I'm sure he might have some limitations and whatnot, but come July and August and whatnot, he's not going to look like Justin Verlander. Do you have any doubt about that? Because I sure as hell don't.
No, not even a little bit. I would take Justin Verlander over any pitcher I have in my rotation right now a year off of Tommy John. I would rather see him out front pitching. And it probably is the age and injury risk is why he's not on here. That's also why I feel like, Thor is so far down the list too. But Verlander has been consistent his entire career. I've never seen a man keep the same throwing motion, keep the same style. Like everything he did has been consistent for that long, and he's been consistently successful. So yes, it is an absolute disgrace not having him on this list. Do I have him in the top 10? I mean, if it was just pitchers, yeah, I'd probably have him about 3rd or 4th on my list if it was just pitchers. But
yeah, no,
I'm not necessarily have him that
I'm not
high.
sitting here. I'm not advocating for him to be in the top 10, but he should be on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, he deserves to be on the list. What I think we're missing here, though, overall, is and we haven't really talked about it. And age, I think, does play a big factor in this list to an extent. Like you look at Correa is going to be 27. Seager's going to be like 28, 29, something like that. So you're getting a couple guys that are relatively young, but not anything that's super young. I think it's just the ability to get a long-term contract is why they have those guys so highly rated and like rated above Freddie Freeman. I take Freddie Freeman above both those guys. If it's me, I have Freddie Freeman number one. He'd be the biggest get I'd want. Even at his age, like that dude performs and he's consistent as well. So I think it's that age, the viability for them to play longer term, for you to get more bang for your buck. They have decent wars, all of those guys do. So anything you get above the replacement is going to be a huge factor. And if you can sign them for a longer term, that's where I think that they put these ratings. But I don't like the way that they did it. And if it is that method that they're using, that's completely wrong. I take Freddie Freeman as my first go. If I'm any team that needs to put some offensive power into their lineup, I'm looking at Freddie Freeman first and foremost. And then Chris Bryant. So Freddie Freeman, then Chris Bryant. So 1, 2.
Like I said, this list is garbage.
Yeah, it's trash.
By the way, we were talking about Syndergaard and Stroman and the Mets rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You let Stroman walk, all right? You don't sign him for the 5-6 years, whatever he's going to get. 1, 2, 3 in the rotation, okay? DeGrom, Verlander, Syndergaard.
Nasty. That's nasty. Even if it's just for a year with Verlander, that's disgusting. Oof. You can probably get him pretty cheap too.
So, like I said, you're going to get Syndergaard or even if you signed him to a longish deal of 3-4 years, it's not going to be anything absurd. You could sign Verlander to a 2-year deal, or a 1 year with an option, or however he would want to work it. Okay, and now you have all kinds of top end potential at the top of that rotation. And again, if this team could finally put it together and get to the postseason, you want to tell me anybody, the Dodgers or whoever else you want to throw at me, wants DeGrom Verlander for the first 2 games of a series?
Nope. In the NL, no. Nope.
Okay.
Can't think of
While
one.
Steve Cohen continues to look for a president of baseball operations, I continue to sit here and put my name as a candidate. I continue to give the Mets ideas for how to make this thing work. Okay? If you're not going to get Theo Epstein, call me. I'm here. I guarantee you I'll make it better than what you're putting out there.
I just want you to keep the Bobby Bonilla deal.
All right, Josh.
Just keep that
I know
going.
you weren't. Dude, Cohen said we'll make a day out of it. He can come. He'll give him the lottery check, drive him around. Have at it.
I dig it. It's my favorite day of the year, Bobby Bonilla's payday. So it's the one thing that I get to laugh at as a Twins fan, where it's like, thank God that's not my team, because it would make so much sense. So for it to be somebody else, totally okay with it.
Like I said, it doesn't even bother. Everybody has that deal now. The Orioles are playing Chris Davis for the next 27 years, and everybody's got that type of deal now. All right, the Mets just happen to do it first, and whatever. So have at it.
Fair enough.
All right. So end of the show, we ran about something we have not covered in the show, or we just kind of touched on. I know Josh has been looking very forward to ranting away, so I will not have you hold it in any longer. Go ahead and let us have it.
All right. So this is where I lose about half of the chat, if not more. But I'm going to start with something. That we talked about at the very beginning of the show. And I'm just going to kind of bring it back full circle, because you kind of tried to contradict me a little bit on my hatred for what's happening with the Vikings by downplaying Arizona's not that good. You like my bet, but you don't think that it's going to be as severe as I think it is. Let me tell you why it's going to be that bad. Okay? Cincinnati does not have a defense. They really don't in the grand scheme of things. Arizona's got a way better defense, even with an old J.J. Watt, an older Chandler Jones. Like, you mean to tell me that the Vikings offense that couldn't give Kirk Cousins any time and only allowed Dalvin Cook to get 3 yards per carry, average, you mean to tell me Arizona is going to give up more, or that all of a sudden the Vikings offensive line is going to block better and Kirk Cousins is going to have better decision-making instead of standing in the pocket when he does have time and not hit wide open receivers? I don't buy it. I also believe wholeheartedly that Arizona's got a better offense as far as DeAndre Hopkins goes and Kyler Murray's escapability. When you don't have guys like Anthony Barr in the lineup, you don't have these key pieces. You don't have Cameron Dantzler there helping out in the secondary. Cameron Dantzler only being a second-year guy makes a big difference when you've got them just picking on Rashad Breeland all day. Okay, so that team is trash. They're absolute dog shit. Fire Mike Zimmer, because I don't know a single coach that can't coach a team, especially an offensive line, not to fucking hold 15 times a game. Okay? Fucking tired of it. This guy is a defensive-minded DB whisperer, DB guru who's revitalizing Patrick Peterson's career. Get fucked. That team should not be able to give up that many points when we're drafting a new fucking DB every year and then letting him go at the end of his rookie contract. So I'm sick and tired of it. I'm over it. Fire Zimmer. Give me anybody at this point. Maybe I'll get a college coach that can come out of it. As long as it's not somebody like fucking Bill O'Brien, I don't really care at this point. That's part 1 of today's rant. Part 2, this is where I lose Zach. I'm going to do it because you guys pissed me off in the chat earlier. Talking about what's the hardest position in sports. And you guys can get fucking technical and be like, oh, I'm only talking about the big 4 or whatever. No, the hardest position in fucking sports is a Formula 1 driver. Okay? No one has a faster reaction time. Nobody's doing anything at 200 miles an hour. Okay? Nobody's taking 53G hits on a regular basis, which these guys can do every single week. No one has to memorize corners, turns, bumps, feel the track, look at tires, read all these measurements, all within a split second while going 200 miles an hour, doing 50, 60, 70 laps in a minute and a half. And doing this week in and week out for 26 weeks out of the year. Football players have 17 weeks plus playoffs, so 20, 21 weeks tops. They have to do this. Quarterback has a hard job. He has to be able to read defenses. He has to maintain an entire playbook. He has to do all these things. He's able to rely on other people. And you say it's not a team sport. That driver has to put faith in his entire team to build him a car that's safe for him to get into, that's going to perform. And then he has to go in there and outperform the specs that the team has put into the vehicle. So I don't want to hear about goalies either. Okay. The goalie has to block a lot of shots. He has to be prepared for different kinds of movements. He has to be able to read screens and make saves blinds and make judgment calls. They're all tough jobs. No one's going to question that. Nothing is fucking harder than driving that car at 200 miles an hour where people regularly die. Tell me the last time a goalie died. Tell me the last time a quarterback died from a hit, anything like that. Last driver that died was 2 years ago. Thankfully, they have huge safety features that have taken place recently. But 4 weeks ago, you had a driver at a 56G crash coming off of a corner. He was able to walk away from it. But I don't know any sport that you hit that hard and you can walk away from it anywhere else. Okay. So 100%, that is the toughest athlete. That is the hardest position in any sport. Don't give me this bullshit about Big Four American teams only. There is a fucking American team in Formula One. It is a team sport, and it's not just the driver. It's everybody else that makes that guy go. So stop with that bullshit. That's part 2. Now that Zach's gone, let me get to hockey. This is where I lose everybody else because nobody else cares. Minnesota Wild have potentially the next Connor McDavid. They have a guy who has the ability to be that face of a franchise that's never really had a face. Okay, we had Zach Parise, we had Ryan Suter for a while. We had guys like Marian Gaborik come in. This guy was completely unknown to any NHL team except for the Wild because one of our guys got stuck in Russia during a snowstorm. Couldn't get his flight out. Somebody told him locally, hey, you got to go check out this guy, Kirill Kaprizov. He's actually really good. He's playing in the KHL. He's just a step above everybody else. This is in 2015. So our scout goes, sees him, knows that nobody else is looking at him, drafts him, and I believe 6th or 7th round. I can't remember specifically, but he drafts him late. He gets drafted late. He has a contract to play in the KHL. He says, I need to finish my contract. I want to honor that, and then I'm going to come over to the NHL. So last year, his rookie year, he wins the Calder. Gets over 50 goals in his rookie season. Guy's playing lights out. Makes the entire team better. Gets them into playoff contention and actually keeps them relatively competitive with the Golden Knights. And it wasn't until they shut him down and him specifically that they really kind of folded. He's that game changer. He's that playmaker. They signed him to a 2-year deal. So he's going into his second year. Now, he's not an unrestricted free agent. He's not a restricted free agent. He's kind of in a weird place. And the entire offseason they've been talking about, we're going to re-sign him. There's not really any roadblocks. We're going to get there. We just haven't done it yet. There was rumors that they were going to send him to – he might go back to the KHL. He might go back to Russia. He's not doing it. Just yesterday they came out and said, okay, so we have some problems re-signing him. We think that we're giving him a fair shake and a fair deal. They want to pay him just under $9 million a year. And I don't know how many years. They haven't really come out with specifics, but they're like, we think we're giving him a fair deal. He's being unreasonable. And just as you want to be the GM for the Mets, if I'm the GM for the Wild right now, fucking pay him what he wants. Okay? Just fucking pay him. All right? I don't care. You have these guys that he plays well with. You've got guys like Zuccarello who are getting way better contracts than they deserve because he's making plays for them, because he's giving them assists, he's scoring goals, he's giving them goals when he gets assists. He's making this entire team better. You cannot put a fucking price on that when you've never had that before. In the 20 some odd years that this team has been in existence, this is not something that we've had. I don't care if you overpay. This isn't a Joe Mauer type situation where it's a homegrown boy who's really good. Joe Mauer was never the guy that can get you a cup. He wasn't the guy that was going to win us a World Series. Even when we had Morneau, it just wasn't all there. But you paid that guy because he was that star factor. He was that wow factor. And he's the first catcher in decades to win a batting title. That's what Kirill Kaprizov is for this Minnesota Wild team. If you don't fucking pay this guy and he walks away, I'm never watching a hockey game again. I swear to God. Like, I cannot take this idiocy anymore. And if you want to fight over just $1 million or $2 million, Connor McDavid's got an 8-year, $100 million deal. Maybe don't pay him that much, but I'm not mad at a 5-year, $80 million deal. I'm not mad at a lot of these things. Pay this man so that we can continue having a hockey team that's worth talking about, please. All right, my rant's done.
Okay. All right, so I have to dissect this rant now. All right, let's start with the hockey rant here. No, that's fine. So let me play devil's advocate here, because being a Ranger fan, I'm in a slightly not similar position to you on that roster that they are going through, every year now there's somebody else coming up on a contract that they need to come up with. So, he's coming off Calder. Rangers had a similar situation with Adam Fox a couple of years ago. And they call in the NHL a bridge contract. They're not a free agency yet. The team still owns all their rights, but they have to extend them. So they call it a bridge deal. Basically, it's usually like 3-4 years. They work it, they work out the money, and then after that, then we get to free agency and blah 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 blah. $9 million is a pretty hefty some for a bridge deal. Okay. And combine that with the fact that it's $9 million on a bridge. All right. I get that it's a Calder year, and I'm not saying that the guy isn't top notch. I'm not saying that it's a fluke, but usually when you get the bridge deals, you have a year and a half to maybe even 2.5 years of data, stats, tape, games to go off of. Even a somewhat weird season, coming off of the COVID and all of that. So I get where you're coming from, and being an outsider, obviously I'm not as emotionally attached to you as this is. I will say that $9 million, okay, and I don't know what the length they're talking about with this is, okay? If they're offering him like 7 years, 9 mil, then I can see why he's balking at it. But if it's a bridge deal where it's 3-4 years at $9 million, I could see why they're saying it's a fair shake. I understand that, okay? And if they're quabbling over, $500K or $1 million or something like that, then yeah, I would probably lean a little more to your argument. If we're talking about a gap, then yeah, I might tell him to shut his mouth.
You're also looking at a team that paid $250 million for Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, who were not in the prime of their career. They only had 2-3 good years left at that time. We're talking about a guy who in his rookie year is putting up these kinds of numbers, who, yes, may have a bit of a dip. But with his talent level and the experience that he has so far, the way that he plays, he's more valuable than both of those guys to this team going forward. And he can actually produce for a lot longer than what they did. Parise and Suter had about six years too many on the contract that they signed. So we had to hedge a lot of money for many, many years, and we couldn't be competitive because of that. With Kaprizov, you're actually getting you're getting your value out of your money at this point, based on what the small sample size that we have of him in the NHL from 1 year. You can build around this guy. We've seen already that he can make the players better. That to me is worth going beyond a fair shake. When this guy has the ability to do that for you, you pay him. Edmonton is going to pay McDavid, is going to pay Draisaitl because they make everyone around them better. This is the same kind of thing you have to do with this guy. And yes, I understand that I'm a homer and I want to keep the good player around, but I'm tired of not having this player. I have him now. I want to keep him, and I don't care if 10 years down the road I'm saying this guy's a bum, we should have got rid of him 5 years ago. Right now and for that 5 years, try and build a contender. Try and get as much as you can while you can. If that's the way that if that's their fear, go ahead.
It's funny you bring up Suter and Parise because, again, going back to the Rangers, and I'm very, very well versed in this, okay? You bought them out, which means that your cap is now carrying that money for the next 3, 4, 5 years, okay? Which is why for him the money. Because especially that first year, like even the first 2 years after you buy somebody out, that cap hit is an albatross. Okay, I remember, the Rangers, had to buy out numerous guys. I mean, they bought out Lundqvist. All right, and had to carry that cap hit around last year. I mean, they did it with Mark Stahl. I mean, buying somebody out helps you long term, but in the short term, it is an anchor. So, I mean, ideally, they would probably have to work something out where he would have to take, if it's a 4-year deal, he's got to take shorter on the year 1, 2, and get more year 3, 4, or something like that. But yeah, I was like, just on. I get where you're coming from, but I would say from the outside, it seems like, or is your F1 thing? Okay, I'm not going to sit here and debate like that. I'm not going there. I will tell you that I now know somebody in F1. I know this every race, and then the race that I happen to pay attention to, he wrecked. So I'll call myself the kibosh on him. I will say this.
Wait,
just
who is that
based
driver?
off of
Hold
the
on.
topic.
Hold on. Who did you say? Who do you know? Because you cut out.
Max Van Stoppen or Van der Stoppen.
Verstappen. Yeah, Max Verstappen. That's my favorite driver. So I was just making sure I knew who you were talking about. Yeah. Okay. Continue. Sorry.
Yes. So going to the topic that you were discussing, we have me and Josh are in a chat with people, and we talk about various things, and then a lot of times we will grab some of those topics and bring them up in the show, which is what Josh has done here, because in that chat today we were talking about positions and what the hardest position is. And then we have one guy, LeBron lover, and he is the type of guy that I feel like he sits on the porch with a beer and talks about back in my day when he played for like the softball team and thought he played for the Yankees. Okay. I caught a brief part of this discussion earlier, and he was talking about how catching isn't all that difficult. Okay. By all means, can we put him in some can take 105-mile-an-hour fastball off the mask? Or take a chopper to the groin, or a foul off the thigh, or any of the things that catchers go through, so he can tell me how not hard it is? Okay, I don't care that you play softball with all these 30-year-olds and drink beer, or that you used to play for your high school JV team or wherever else you played. Okay, stop. You're not a professional. You weren't close to being a professional. You have no idea the level of difficulty that a major league catcher has, or an NHL goalie has, or anything else anybody has. Shut your mouth, please. I hate when people do it. I hate at some time they are this guru or, this uber athlete that they never were and probably still aren't. So shush. Please stop. Okay. That wasn't my rant. Well, let's get to my rant. Another topic that brought up by you in the chat today. Alabama quarterbacks looked pretty damn good. Let's blend this in with just overreactions for week 1. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles carved up a Falcon team that didn't show up. They were dead on arrival. Okay? So now I got to hear how the Eagles are contenders in the NFC East, and Jalen Hurts looks like a bona fide starting quarterback, and yada, 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 yada. And I got people in the area that now are just put them down for the Super Bowl. You're playing the Niners this week. Let's see how you do against a real defense. Let's see how Jalen Hurts looks with Nick Bosa coming down his throat. Okay? Tua got bailed out because Damian Harris couldn't hold on to the football. All right, I got to hear, oh, well, Tua looks pretty damn good. And look at him. He's 8-3 as a starter. Yada, 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 yada. He still can't throw the ball downfield. Everything I said about Tua before that game and why I thought the Patriots would win was proved right, and the Patriots should have won. All right, and who am I forgetting? Who's the other Alabama quarterback? All right, where obviously Mac was in that game. Mac looked fine, whatever. I mean, he didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, Mac was okay. He didn't do anything great. Okay, but I mean, the overreactions after week 1. Stop. The Cardinals are not a Super Bowl team. Okay, they beat up on a Titans team that did nothing. I mean, Derrick Henry was a no-show. I mean, they didn't move the ball. The defense didn't guard anybody. I mean, the Cardinals aren't legit. I mean, that's like telling me the Raiders are legit because Lamar Jackson couldn't hold the football last night. Raiders now? I mean, hold on. Let me look it up because I'm ranting and I'm losing my train of thought here. But where is it? The Raiders this week. Where is it at? The Raiders play the Steelers this week. The Steelers coming off the Bills' victory. Okay, and a game that the Bills kind of gave away. You could say the Steelers' defense took it over, however you want to look at it. Okay, but now, all right, again with the overreactions. Now the Steelers are bona fide Super Bowl contenders because they beat the Bills, and the Bills are garbage. Okay, but what? Are you going to tell me the Raiders are going to go in Pittsburgh and win? No, not going to happen. And for all the Steeler fans that are high and mighty off of coming off the Bills victory, do you remember last year when you were 11-0? You were 11-0, and then you lost in the first round of the Browns. The Browns, who find ways to screw themselves every damn week. But now you're going to tell me, oh, you're going to pound your chest. All you do was talk about we beat the Bill. It's 1 week. It's 1 week. Here's the one thing that is an overreaction. Okay? What you forgot is Tyrod Taylor is a capable quarterback. Tyrod Taylor has taken teams that haven't been good and gotten them to the playoffs. Okay, he took the Bills when the Bills were nothing, before Josh Allen, before Steph Diggs, and before all that. He got them to the playoffs. He's the one that broke that playoff curse. Okay, so was I surprised that the Texans won against Urban Meyer, who's 3 weeks away from having a heart attack, and Trevor Lawrence, who isn't at Clemson anymore? No, I'm not. Okay? Trevor Lawrence showed the good and bad, which we weren't surprised about. Zach Wilson showed that it's the Jets, and he's going to need a whole lot of help. I mean, it is week 1, people. Almost anything. All right, as cynical as a Giant fan as I am, and as much as that game was a microcosm of every problem the Giants have had in the last 2 years, again, it is 1 week. Okay, God forbid if Daniel Jones holds on to the football, they could win this week against the team. It's not out of the equation. All right, the Giants have actually in the past 2 seasons played the team pretty damn well. So what? If they go into Washington and win this week, I'm going to say, oh, now they're going to win the division because the team is the team to beat in the division? No, I'm not. So stop. It is 1 week. 1 week. Let's get through a month before we start labeling teams. You know, oh, the Cardinals are a top 5 team because they beat the crap out of the Titans. No, they're not. Play the Niners. Play the Rams. Hell, play the Seahawks. Let me see how you do there. All right. The Eagles get the Niners this week. Let me see how you do with that. The Raiders coming off a big win against the Ravens, in which the Ravens handed it to them. All right. Now go play the Steelers and stop. Please. Irritate the hell out of me with it.
It's good. It's good. Let the hate flow. Like, I love these rants because football's back, and I'm so excited for all of this. I do just want to point out one thing though, and
Yes.
this is something I'm sure we'll cover this in weeks to come. I'm sure as the week progresses, but pretty interesting that college quarterbacks that were reunited with their wide receivers actually had really good weekends. Like, yes, Tua didn't look great. Jalen Waddle did though. Really made that team look a lot better. Look at Jalen Hurts connected with Devontae Smith right away. They had that early connection. They have that rapport already. They look good in that game. Granted, they're playing Atlanta. I get it. Miami was playing New England. Mac Jones playing by himself. Yes, I'm going on the whole Alabama thing, 3 starting quarterbacks, but Mac Jones didn't look bad either in a Belichick offense that doesn't require him to be great, So Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was lights out with Joe Burrow as his quarterback. So you're starting to see that this could potentially be a trend. I mean, Trevor Lawrence had ETN come with him, but ETN is obviously out for the year, so we don't know if there was any kind of rapport that could be built there. It's an interesting concept, though, for us to watch this season. I'm not overreacting on it. I'm just saying, like, the first week of this experiment is actually paying off pretty well. I refuse to not overreact on how bad my Vikings are. I feel like at this point, if Detroit has a good showing against Green Bay, the Vikings are going to be last place in that division and somehow manage to just destroy their entire season. They're going to get a couple wins, but I think that they're absolute trash. So I'm going to continue my overreaction on that, and I probably won't change my tune, even if they make the playoffs on some fucking miracle that would have to happen. But I agree with you on a lot of it. There is a lot of overreacting. There is a lot that's going on. But I feel like the things that we're not overreacting on are actually quite positive and something that we can actually be excited about for the rest of the season. So hopefully we get more of that and a lot less of week 2 overreacting. If Jameis has another big week, like, oh my God, he's a god now. Like, no, let's pump the brakes. Let's give him a couple weeks. Give all these teams a couple weeks before we really start making these big predictions.
All right. So to wrap up the show, wait until the end. It's time for the lock, Josh. It's time for the lock. Okay. So again, I will give you the lock. Okay. Pay attention. There's the lock, and then there's the extension on the lock. Okay. The extension is not a lock. It is just an add-on of things that I think are still probable, and you can add on to the lock, and maybe it will work out, but it's not the lock. So there's the lock and the extension. Okay. So as of right now, as of this moment, the lock is slightly over plus money. Okay. We are taking, again, my lock parlays are typically money lines. When we give you the picks on Twitter, okay, I give you spreads. All right, I pick select games, I'll give you spreads. But the lock is usually money line parlays. That's why they're locks. Okay, so here we go. The 4 teams in the lock this week are the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Browns, and the Patriots. Those 4 teams will get you at the moment plus 112 on a money line parlay. Okay, and for those of you who don't know the schedule, Browns are playing the Texans, the Patriots are playing the Jets, the Buccaneers are playing the Falcons, and the Packers are playing the Lions on Monday night. That is the lock.
My only one, man, is that Green Bay Detroit game. I feel like people are just sleeping on that.
You think? Wait, hold on. Again, this isn't the spread. This is just to win. You think Detroit is winning that game?
But if Green Bay plays the way they did against the Saints, absolutely. Detroit doesn't have much of a team.
Well, again,
you put up 33 points on San Francisco, whether it's garbage or not. San Francisco's got a better defense than Green Bay does. If Detroit can find a little bit of defensive pressure and make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable and have that entire team underperform 2 weeks in a row, they could sleep and beat them. Now, granted, I'm biased, and I want nothing more than to see Green Bay lose and Detroit get that dub. But I can understand it. It's a good bet to make. I'm just skeptical because I've never seen Green Bay look that way with Aaron Rodgers before, and I haven't seen Detroit look halfway decent in a decade. So I'm biased.
I would say the chat is saying that your biasness is playing into your hate on this bet.
That's fine. I can admit to that. That's fair. I'm not the bookie either, so
okay.
my
Now,
bias is what it is.
Okay, now the extension. Okay, so again, lock: Green Bay, Cleveland, New England, Kansas City. That's the lock. The extension, we're gonna add 4 more. All right, all games that we talked about already. We'll throw the Cardinals on there for you since you said the Vikings are going to lose by 2021. So we'll put the Cardinals on there. Not to mention when the Cardinals are 2-0, I'll really have to hear how they're Super Bowl contenders. I told you about the Steelers playing the Raiders. We'll put them on there. Raiders will surely have a letdown this week. You made reference to the Broncos. They're playing the Jaguars this week. Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer will still have problems. Teddy Bridgewater will navigate things there. And lastly, the Ravens will go to 0-2. I told you they do not beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs put up 31 every game. We put the Chiefs on there. Those 8 will get you 7.5 to 1. So there you have it. Again, follow us on Twitter. That is where we give you the picks for both college and NFL. My picks did pretty well this week. Pretty well. All right. A lot of money being handed out. Just saying.
Free money. Free money.
I'm trying to help the people. All right.
I'm gonna have if not like within the next day or so, by this weekend, I'm gonna have some MMA bets, some futures coming out for you for just a couple of the upcoming pay-per-views. Watching the Contender Series right now, so I'll have a couple bets for you on those guys as soon as they get their first UFC fights announced. That will be up on the Twitter as well. And if you're not already on there, guys, go to Facebook. Follow us there. On YouTube. If you haven't subscribed already, please like and subscribe. Comment on there. Give me something to do. Because I kind of follow that more. Dan kind of follows the iTunes and the Spotify world a little bit more. So just give us something. And if you guys have stuff that you want to talk about outside of the chat, or if you have things in the chat that you want us to talk about for those of you that are in it, like, let us know, man, because I got no problems arguing with you guys and bringing up stuff that you care about, because as much as I want to sit here and talk about my bullshit, I'll talk about y'all's bullshit too.
Oh, I was going to say, absolutely. By all means, you comment on the YouTube or on iTunes or Spotify or wherever. You leave us a comment and you want to call us out on something or say, hey, talk about this, or by all means, I will be happy to go back at you.
Neither one of us
no
is
problem.
Really
no, I was going to say.
We know I'm not shy. I keep respect.
So, yeah. No, nobody should. But yeah, so again, follow us on Twitter. You can subscribe also on iTunes and Spotify or all the podcast world is. So next week we will talk about week 2 in the NFL, cash another lock. We'll see how college does, and we'll be getting closer to the end of baseball. And look at the bright side, Josh. We're just a couple of weeks away from hockey starting.
Can't wait, dude. So excited.
I'll say I'm sure the people listening to this will be very pumped for the hockey preview show. So
Yeah.
But until then, quickly, our host for a minute there, Matthew, for standing in tonight. Did a pretty good job for the first time. We'll listen to the feedback. Maybe we'll bring them back next week.
Yeah, let us know what you
how
think
the
of
people
Matt.
like them.
Yeah.
If
they like him, we'll bring him back.
Apparently, he does wardrobe changes on the fly.
Hey, I mean, if that's the standard we're going to set, I'm going to hold them to that every single week.
Screw them. Anyway, there you go. All right, but until next week, for the beard, Josh,